It's Wednesday night, and you know what that means. We're back live on the Big Mountain.
Welcome back to another live episode here on the Big Mountain. I know we have a lot of people already in the chat going at it, saying hello to everyone. And I think I may know why we have quite a few people in the chat, Steve. I think it has to do with the episode that we dropped today regarding the Big 10, the SEC, the ACC conference realignment. If there's one thing that gets people excited, it's talking about conference realignment. So we're absolutely going to get to that. I know we have close to, I think, 100 people that are on right now. And so the plan for tonight is we're going to actually start with this whole Michigan Stalions thing that just came out. Again, Steve's going to talk about that really briefly. We do have a lot of West Coast fans here on the Big Mountain. We always like to give them a little bit of time to get home from work or whatever they may be doing to join us here. So the second one will be the biggie, the SEC, ACC, Big 10 discussion, mainly based on what we dropped today. That'll be mainly Steve answering your questions. We'll speculate a little bit more because that's always fun. We would love to hear from you guys as well. I know I was fairly active on X today, Steve, and I got the most DMs I've ever had in one day, and probably the most engagement I've ever had on X in one day. And I wasn't trying to speak for you, but I think I answered everybody's questions for the most part accurately based on what you said and what we know. But I think there's obviously some more questions that they would like to hear from you. And then when we're done with that, at the very end, the Mountain West statement that came out today, it came out from Gloria Nevarez. Interestingly, it was very specific about certain things, one of them being the grant of rights, an item I have been trying to get answers for a few weeks, and I actually got an answer on that yesterday. I wasn't able to get to it because I had my day job that took most of my day. But I got the answer, and then she just made it public today. So, okay, I had it a day early, whoop-de-doo. Now we all know there is a grant of rights, according to the commissioner, that has been signed by the 7 members. I'm going to get into that, what that means. A little more speculation on that because we dropped a UNLV episode, Steve, on Monday. Right. So our Mountain West and Pac people are going to want to hear speculation on that. So we've got everything. We've got SEC, ACC, Big 10, Pac, Mountain West.
Yep.
I mean, that's 5 of 9.
Hits all the,
right?
the
10.
Yeah, hits all the big players.
Yeah. So anyway, let's start with Michigan. Anything you want to say before we go right into it, Steve?
Like you said, ready to talk about some Big 10 news, and then, like I committed during the episode,
I don't know why you did that.
Every single question we're gonna try. If I have to stay here all night, our producer has to stay here all night. We'll try and get to every single question.
You know what I did?
What's that?
2 hours ago?
What's that?
I picked up a whole case of Pilsner for myself.
All right, let's go.
So I am ready to go. All right, anyway, let's get to, I want to get to Michigan Stallions, some of the new reporting that's come out on that. And then I do want to just clarify, before we get into the SEC, ACC, Big 10, I want to clarify what we mean by sources. I put this out on X, and I just want to be really clear what we mean when we say sources versus reporting versus speculation. I think it's really clear to clear that up before we go down that path. So, Michigan versus Stallions, new news, Steve. What's going on up there?
Yeah, so Ross Dellinger kind of led the charge today. This was some big breaking news in the Big 10, and he had it first. A bunch of tweets and a big article. Basically, it looks like University of Michigan leaked their response to the Big 10, or actually to the NCAA regarding the notice of allegations that they had gotten. I think there were 6 level 1 violations and some other violations. And basically their response to the NCAA is, well, we're not going to deny any of these things, but we think some of them are not actually, we did these things, but some of them were not actually illegal, and the other things you can't prove anyways. So, and some of them, okay, they did happen. You might be able to prove it, but they shouldn't be level 1 violations. They should be dropped down.
Gotcha.
And basically they threatened to fight this in court, fight it all the way through. So the big thing with this, and there was some actual news that came out of their response. You know, the Michigan fans on the message boards for the last year, 2 years, however long this saga has been going on, have been claiming all along that this was an Ohio State hit job.
Right.
Ryan Day's brother, yada, yada, yada. Well, in their response, their 100-page document that they leaked out today, Michigan says this came from our house. This came from a confidential informant who went to the NCAA, who was a University of Michigan employee. They can't confirm if they're still a University of Michigan employee because it sounds like they don't know the identity. And one of the big things is they don't want to proceed until the NCAA reveals that identity of that confidential informant to Michigan. Otherwise, they're just going to ignore, all of the allegations, and they don't have to respond because they don't know the identity and they can't face their accuser, basically. But they are admitting that it was an in-house job, basically. The calls were coming from in the house, which was huge.
Yeah.
In other parts of it, basically, they pushed back on the reports of Connor Stalions hiring all of these people to go do in-person scouting by basically saying that's not illegal. It's only illegal for actual employees of the University of Michigan to do the in-person scouting. He was using family members and friends, and they say there's nothing illegal about that. It's not against the rules.
Right.
They don't say that it didn't happen.
Yeah.
They just say that they don't think that it's illegal. And they say that the NCAA doesn't have any proof that the Michigan staffers, the head coach or any of the assistant coaches, actually knew what was going on. Now, there is some parts in the in there that they don't necessarily refute, but again, just say that it's not illegal or that the NCAA doesn't have proof. Now, they admit in there that head coach Sharon Moore, who was an assistant at the time, on the day that the allegations hit the news, deleted I think something like 70 texts that he had exchanged with Connor Stalions. The NCAA was able to collect his phone and retrieve and image those deleted texts.
Okay.
And a lot of them have nothing to do with this. They're just general things. But a lot of them, you can tell basically they're discussing this. They're talking about game plans. They're talking about signals and change their signals. This team is screwed. Whatever. They're going back and forth. So again, it's not an admission of guilt.
Right.
But when you look at it, it's pretty clear to anybody, a neutral party, that Sharon Moore knew at least something. Maybe he didn't know that he was paying for people's tickets or however. Including, if you remember, there was reports, there was sightings identifying Connor Stalions on the sideline of Central Michigan University when they were playing, I think it was Michigan State.
Right.
And there are text messages between Connor Stalions and Sharon Moore saying, hey, this coach, who was then later fired by Central Michigan after the NCAA investigation, hey, this coach is coming to visit us and talk about some game planning, okay?
Yes.
Basically their thing is, hey, we are Michigan. All of this is circumstantial. You can't prove anything. And the things that you can prove, we don't think are illegal anyways, or they're not as serious as you're saying.
Right.
So it's a game of chicken right now between the NCAA, who has not had a good record in court, losing all of these antitrust lawsuits where players were suing for benefits and all those kinds of things.
Right.
But we really haven't seen there's been schools were able to challenge the NCAA because they are member institutions. They agree to participate under these rules.
Right.
So they're kind of playing this game of chicken right now of, hey, we don't agree with it. We're not going to participate. We're not going to participate in that negotiation of a settlement. We want the process to go through, but we don't even believe your process is relevant or has any teeth.
Well, I only have a few things to say because I have been very, very busy with my pack, Mountain West, everything. I saw these tweets. I think you sent me a few things. I really didn't get to read articles or anything like that. I did, however, watch the and this is not a plug in whatsoever, but I did watch the Netflix documentary of Connor Stalions, and it's pretty damn obvious what happened.
Absolutely.
He doesn't really hold
it.
I mean,
smiles.
Well, he does everything but admit it.
Yeah.
He does everything but admit it. This is kind of old news. Should they be held accountable? Yeah, they should be. I'm kind of over it. Not over it that it wasn't an issue and they shouldn't be held accountable. I'm not over it to that degree, but I'm over it from the, I got better things to do.
Yeah.
I appreciate you breaking it down, though.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty big news. I think it would be huge news if it was a little more timely and there wasn't so many other things going on. So I do want to pause there.
Yeah.
We are seeing in the chat maybe that there is
we have a lag.
some lag issues, some audio video not synced up. So our producer is working on that. There is a possibility if it gets worse, we may have to.
We may jump off and jump back on. New laptop, which is going to create positive experiences, but I think we're having a bit of a Wi-Fi issue, quite frankly. So we're going to keep going. If we lose you guys, we will come right back on. We promise. As Steve said, we know we dropped a really hot episode today. We're going to give that all the due time that it needs here tonight. So we apologize. Hopefully, if the lag picks up, that's great. We're not really pretty looking anyway, so you don't really want to look at us. We're not going to put much on the screen. It's more about what you're going to be hearing. I will say I've gotten several comments about the Brewskis, CFB Plus. Respects that, we got the Brewskis happening on a live show. That happens pretty much every live show.
Absolutely.
JY's got his brewski going. I was on the Oktoberfest for quite a while. I'm almost out. So you know how it is when you get down to those last couple, you got to save them for something. Maybe the Super Bowl or something.
Now that it's almost February,
Well, I still got summer beer left because it's my favoriteest beer. But anyway, we've got other people. John is always the one that reminds us when JY starts to slur his words. That's how much fun we have on the mountain. It's probably time to stop our live episodes.
Yes.
That is John, and he is in. And we've got so many people. We usually like to do shout outs, but we have got gobs of people in. And I know, they want to hear about this. All I'm going to say, a couple things real quick. We're going to get in, unless there's anything else with Michigan.
I know. I just say I love it. Everyone, tell us if you're having a brew or some adult beverage at home, let us know what you're drinking.
That's right. That always seems to be the good. Somebody was talking about, I think, Pabst. This is not Pabst. But if you have Pabst, good on you. So I'm going to go back up. I'm going to be a little bit of the moderator.
Okay.
Kind of. Between questions and answers. If you guys want to throw up super chats, that's awesome. We don't need super chats. That's not really why we're here. Well, it's not why we're here. We're here to have a good time. We're here to give you guys information, and we are all about the discussion. And that, hopefully tonight we're going to have a great discussion.
Yes.
Right.
So let's get to every single question.
Okay. So I'm going to go all the way back up because I know we have, I think it was the Chad asking some questions here before we're even live. So we're going to start at the very top. The only thing I want to talk about real quick is sources, Steve. And we're not going to out sources. We won't out sources. You can believe us when we say it. You don't have to believe us. I get these people on X. Who's the source? We're not going to name sources. That's not how this works. Nobody does that. But when we tell you it's coming from a source, it's coming from either a decision maker at a university. It's coming from somebody that is in an athletic department. It's people that are in the know to varying degrees. I mean, realistically, it's varying degrees. But it's sourced information. It's not coming from Steve nor I. It's also not coming from another Xter or another YouTuber. We're not regurgitating what other people are saying on shows. I'm on X a decent amount. I honestly don't have time to follow other people's pods very much because we're doing our own pod. I'm busy enough doing this pod. I don't need to view other people's pods. Now, if people ask us questions, hey, can you check that out? Absolutely, I'll go check it out. But I am not a regular viewer of other pods. Sure. Zero other pods. I'm not. I don't think you are either.
No. I watch Cover 3 podcast.
Cover 3. All right. So, and I'm really not at all because there's not a lot of Mountain West pods. I think we're one of the, dare I say, best.
Yeah.
I don't know. But anyway. So anyway, we're not regurgitating stuff. If we are, we're telling you so, right? And if we have reporters that we're using, we will tell you. And Steve just did this the other day when we were talking about the Big Ten.
Chris Dodd
and Tom Fernelli from CBS. We've done, we have used Canzano way back when we were doing some PAC stuff. Wilner. We let everyone know when they are not so much the source, but we're using their articles or their reporting of what we're just talking about. And we use it as kind of a baseline, and then we give our thoughts on it. That's how we've done it. Now that we've grown a little bit, our pool of sources is growing as well.
Yes.
And the only other thing I'll just say, Immaculate, who I've had some discussions with on X here recently, very intelligent guy. And he brought this up. Sources come at this probably mostly with their own agenda that they're pushing. So we're not naive to think that, hey, a source said it to us, it's 100% true.
Yes.
Or it might be true, but it might be twisted in a way that it's getting to an agenda that they would like to see. So we're aware of that as well.
They're releasing the information that they want people to know, and
Correct.
maybe not talking about other things that they don't want people to know because that's not their preferred agenda sometimes.
Yes, correct. So I just wanted to get through that. I don't want to lecture people on that. But I think it's important, especially with what was dropped today, that we kind of get that out of the way. All right, with that, let's get to it. So the Chad says, "Hello all. Can you please speculate on the need be based of your conversations? What is the percent?" Okay, so he's asking about the percent FSU to the Big Ten. If you were to rank, what is your percentage of likelihood that FSU would be in the Big Ten? In the end, I would like FSU out of the ACC. He has his preferences. Anything on the FSU to the Big Ten? Where do you think no timeline here, but where do you think they're going to end?
So last year at this time, I said my expectation was, when I went on record, we had a bunch of people appreciate that I thought Florida State would be the next addition to the Big Ten.
Yeah.
And a big part of that was going to be how quickly Florida State could work through their lawsuit with the grant of rights. And there was going to be some other things, and that the Big Ten probably was preferring to wait until the 2030, 2031 time frame when their next media contract was up. But the Florida State was kind of pushing for that to be sooner if they could get out of their contract.
Right.
So now, honestly, things change. It's not really that I'm changing my opinion, but the latest news, and if you watched our episode the other day, after talking with a connection I have within a Big Ten athletic department, the newest circumstances are that ESPN is pushing behind the scenes to potentially move a group of schools from the ACC over to the SEC. The ESPN is the bill payer basically for both of those conferences.
Right.
We know we've covered in depth the litigation. So at this point, and what I said was their main target, ESPN really is focusing strongly on University of North Carolina with the recent hiring of Bill Belichick. But if they go ahead and do that move, that could have some dominoes. They may decide to move some properties over, and this has been ongoing as part of the discussion between ESPN and the ACC of renewing their contract. I don't know if you want to call it renewing or extending, opting in, whatever you want to call it. In the negotiations, this has been a part of the negotiations. It's not complete, it's not done, but it's something that they are looking to do, and they're using this time frame in this negotiation to do it. If they don't get it done right now, it may happen later. But if they are able to move UNC, I think there's a good chance that they could also potentially, first of all, move NC State, because the way the political situation is in the state of North Carolina, those two have to go together. That's just the way it is. And then also potentially looking at Florida State and Clemson, because those are valuable properties. They're already paying the bills for those. They would like to move them over to their premier conference, which is going to get better ratings, make more money for them, but at the same time, they still want to extend and keep this contract going with the ACC. It's a great financial deal for them. It fills their inventory. So this is more about them. They want to keep the properties that they have, maybe just shuffle the deck a little bit.
And that is kind of answers the next question from Brett. It was about Brett Taylor asks, if ESPN's pushing ACC teams to get out of the ACC and into the SEC, which is what we're saying, why would they extend the TV contract with the ACC and not just opt out? And you just answered that question, right? They want that. Well, go ahead.
And I can go further from what I said. The ESPN is happy with the ACC contract. Whether they move these teams or not, they would prefer, especially North Carolina, Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
They want to capitalize and maximize the eyeballs that are going to be on that program the next 3, 4, 5 years, however long Bill Belichick is there. But they are very happy with their ACC contract, whether they move these programs or not. And the expectation is that they will renew this either way, whether they move the programs. And you're saying, well, why would they do it? Because they already have the ACC locked in a very good deal.
Yes.
A low number, basically, and it fills their inventory. They have a lot of slots. It fills inventory at a price that they're happy with, continuing with.
And I think that's important. I think that sometimes gets missed in all of this. The ACC deal with the ESPN deal with the ACC is a good deal for ESPN. We have said that from the very beginning when we started covering the lawsuit situation, and that's part of why FSU's kind of upset.
Yes,
because it's a good deal for the
ESPN,
media partner, not necessarily for the members.
Yes.
So that's why, Steve is saying, and it truly makes sense through the last 12 months of us covering all of this, that's why this makes a lot of sense. Again, timeline, a little wishy. The Belichick, we'll probably get questions about timeline. I got that a lot today. Yes. The pressure right now, and then there may be some other things, but it's kind of that Belichick. Yes. I mean, I saw people speculating today that this Bill Belichick at UNC could be multiple times bigger than Dion at CU.
Right.
So who wouldn't want to get that on their main network playing against Texas? And that was another question I responded to. Why would they do this? Because you're talking UNC versus Texas versus Georgia versus Bama versus Tennessee, not UNC versus Wake Forest versus, again, I'm not the
Boston College,
not the crap on those programs, but it's a whole different level of viewership. It's all about these guys.
Yes.
They drive eyeballs.
Yep.
That's why.
Yep.
Another question from Brett, he says, in today's financial situation, SEC and Big don't have much leverage, do they? With the big money contracts, doesn't ESPN and Fox have the leverage to tell them who to admit? Well, that's kind of what we're saying.
Well, I will say the SEC and Big it depends on who you're talking to about leverage.
Okay.
The SEC and Big Ten have a lot of leverage over their I won't even say competitors or rivals over the other conferences. But I don't even know if if you look at this in terms of leverage against Fox or ESPN, because they're more partners than anything. ESPN has financially invested in the SEC. They created the SEC network. Same thing over with Fox. Fox is a part owner of the Big Ten. They jointly own the Big Ten network. And now Fox is a majority owner of the Big Ten Network, and the rights for these games are actually held by the Big Ten Network. So it's not really a matter of leverage of the Big Ten over Fox or SEC over ESPN. It's that they're fully invested in each other.
Sure. Well, fortunately, we delayed this because Brett had walked away. There was a rocket launch in Florida. He's down in Florida at 8:34. I think maybe he got back in time. And I'm starting at the top, guys. If you guys are making comments of what we're talking about, we're going to get to them. I'm a little limited, but we're going to keep going down the list here. So we got some PSU stuff. I'm not going to get into that now. Maybe at the end we can come back up and talk about that. I want to stay focused kind of on this realignment piece. Let's keep going. Brett, I'm 4-4 on, what's Beans? Beans? I think that's a typo.
Being successful on a Big Mountain Viewer.
Oh, there we go.
All right.
That's at the beginning of the slideshow.
Yes,
all right, he's 4-4 on being a successful Big Mountain.
Thank you, Brett.
That's awesome, Brett. Well done, sir. Remember to like the show. Thank you, Jerry. Yeah, you can pound the like button if you're so inclined. That's great. UNLV, we'll get to Mountain West here in a little bit. Is this the Steve show? Clint, this is the Steve show for right now. It'll be the JY show at the very, very end, assuming JY is still not slurring his words. Okay, where are we going, Steve? Oh, we got an NDSU guy up in here. EH, well done, sir. Answer any questions to NDSU to the Mountain West. If you're able to stick around till we get to the Mountain West side of things, that would be awesome. Because I've been following you guys a good bit. There's definitely a bit of difference of opinion regarding the financial wherewithal of NDSU.
John Hawk says the reason we had this delay to start was because we had to sober you up.
No, that's later on. Beavertail Wap from JEH. I don't know who he's wapping. I think he's wapping the laptop issue.
He's just letting everybody know that he's here. The Beavs are here.
Yeah. John, sticking with the fact that you were throwing cold water on me. All right, Bison Nation in the house. We're going to get there, guys. Give us 1 sec. Oh, here's one. What's this?
Okay.
All right, we got Hard Rocking Trivia Show. Sweet name.
Yeah.
Hard Rocking Trivia Show. I'm a Seven Dust fan. Just want to throw that out there. The whole SEC Big Ten wanting to control the CFP playoffs with ESPN sounds like a monopoly issue. I had this come up a couple times. It may have actually been Hard Rock that brought this up on my X. What do they call that? Feed? My X, feed. Whatever. Yes. And the other conferences should consider suing. Not exactly what we're talking about, but any comments on that? I have some comments.
Well, in the format that it's in now, and as far as controlling, it's obviously not a monopoly because they are allowing the other conferences to participate. We saw Boise State get the G6 spot this year. We saw Arizona State getting in there. Now, if they were to try and freeze the other conferences out where they had no opportunity to participate and to get any of that revenue or whatever, then that could, maybe cause some kind of antitrust issues or whatever. But as for now, it's kind of the opposite. I mean, it's a negotiation process where they're all getting to participate and they're all asking for things that they want. And They can all ask for things that they want. And, at the end of the day, they have to sign that agreement and approve the agreement. So I would say it's almost the opposite of a monopoly, but it could be moving in that direction.
Right. I think that's the fear. I think that's the fear.
That could legitimate fear.
Yeah, and that question was about the CFP. I think the comments that I had today on Twitter was more just about ESPN being a monopoly over the college football playoff. Yep. And I don't think that's the case. I think my comment to that was ESPN is willing to kind of put the money up because they want the viewers. Yes. And they are all in on college football.
Absolutely.
I mean, they are the premier, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
They have the most IP of any network.
Yep.
And they put their eggs in that basket. I mean, you're either watching college football or you're watching cornhole,
yes.
Which I like watching cornhole, but it don't get the viewers of college football. Let's be honest here, right? Or poker. Sure. So their eggs are very heavily in the college football realm.
Yeah.
And I can't blame them for that because it is a free market. Other people, when these things go out to market, when the media rights go out to market, anybody can bid whatever the hell they want to bid, and ESPN just decides we want to be the number one college football platform.
And they fully invested in the SEC, like we already talked about.
Yeah.
They were the highest bidder for the college football playoff.
Yep.
Now they ended up with an agreement. They leased out a couple games to TNT, I think, to settle some other things.
Right.
But they're footing the bill. They're paying the money, and that's just the reality of life in America. Whoever pays the bills, whoever has the most money, makes the rules. It makes the decisions, because that's the world we live in.
Brett, again, I speculate ESPN and Fox are negotiating and deciding which teams are going to the SEC and the Big. So we talked about ESPN potentially in what you're saying between the ACC and the SEC because that's all owned. That IP is owned by ESPN. Mm-hmm. How do you think? And this is good speculation. We didn't get into this too much. But how does Fox and the Big play into this for an FSU, for a Miami that is currently owned by ESPN, right? The IP is owned. How exactly is that working? Could that work?
Yeah. So I'll tell you. So for right now, as we stand today, Fox and the Big Ten have no part of this. They are terrified of this litigation and being named as a party to it. So the Big Ten and Fox have basically completely backed off.
Okay.
This entire thing right now is being pushed by ESPN. They're paying the money for all these ACC teams and all the SEC teams, and they're pushing this of where they want these teams to go. Now, what I will say on the Big Ten side, NBC, that's something we talked about before. NBC is not happy with their Big Ten contract. As far as I know, they haven't signed the Big Ten contract. The inventory of games that they have been getting, they have determined has been very lacking.
Right.
Fox is basically gobbling up all the biggest games and putting them on Big Noon. And NBC has not been happy with their inventory. Now, also, NBC partners with Notre Dame. And the same thing, and I think we have Genetics here tonight, and he's talked about this. NBC is not at all happy with Notre Dame's schedule and playing all of these ACC teams, and they want Notre Dame to be playing more Big Ten and SEC teams because the ratings have not been really very good for Notre Dame.
Right.
So they're probably, if you're looking at a Big Ten partner who's not happy right now and is trying to make changes, it's probably NBC. But the problem is they're more of a minor partner compared to Fox. But as far as the Big Ten, if this were up to the Big Ten and Fox, and I want to be totally clear with this, they would be content to just sit and wait until we get closer to 2030, 2031, let the litigation play through. This is something right now that's being driven by ESPN.
And we were very clear. Even the thumbnail was very clear that I put together. ESPN is driving realignment. That's what this is all about right now. And I would also say, if you go back to our very beginnings of the Big Mountain, we've now been on for, good gracious, a year and a half, give or take. And some of our first realignment episodes were about FSU and the Big Ten. And you were very clear even then that 2027 was the earliest. This was pre-lawsuits or any of this. Was the earliest any of this. And I think you were a little hesitant on even putting, you're like, that's really early. Best case scenario is 2027. So the fact that we're talking 29-30, I mean, you've been very consistent that the Big is in no, I keep calling it the Big Ten, is in no rush to do this. While they want to be in Florida, while they would like FSU and or Miami, they're in no rush because they've just taken a huge bite of the apple with the West Coast. And we did an episode about viewership with most of these schools, and those schools did not bring the money and the viewers that these networks were hoping for. And so, is it a pause? Call it whatever you want to call it. They don't really need to be doing anything right now unless they're, I don't say forced to. I think
unless an opportunity presents itself. Yes.
Genetic says JY's wife must be watching you. This is why I laughed while you were talking. If I laugh, it's not laughing at you. It's laughing because somebody wrote a funny comment. But watching YouTube using up the bandwidth, it's actually probably my daughter, not my wife. My wife's working right now. She's an accountant. Busy season for her. My daughter, on the other hand, guaranteed that's
she's probably streaming on one device, TikToking on the other device.
You got it. She's got the TV on. She's got the phone on. And I don't know how to stop it. If I take it away, I'm the worst dad that's ever lived. So
I don't know about your wife, but we've done hundreds of episodes now over the last year and a half. My wife has probably watched 2, maybe 3 episodes. I don't know about yours.
I have absolutely no clue. She wonders what the hell I'm doing down here with you. But anyway, so Hard Rock and Trivia Show. This is one, and I apologize. We are going to jump around a little bit. It's just the way we're going to do this tonight. I'll try to make sure we don't maybe repeat ourselves too much, but we have people coming and going at the same time. But talking about this whole 4 automatic bids that you talked about, Hard Rock and Trivia Show says, the internet's freaking out about this 4 automatic bids.
So here's the thing. All of the talking heads, all the media people are, they're in a tizzy, been in a tizzy about the seeding and how the seeding worked out this year and all that. And yes, some of the Big Ten coaches and representatives and SEC, they're on record for saying, maybe we'll look at that, the seeding. But that is not the major focus right now. Their focus, both the Big Ten and the SEC, they want to lock in those 4 automatic berths every year. And if that requires going to 14, they're willing to do that. If they can get it into the current structure, they would do that. But they really feel like they deserve, with the levels of programs that they have from top to bottom, that just over the course of time, they deserve 4 a year. And we saw the Big Ten got 4 this year anyways. The SEC got 3, and they were on the borderline of getting a 4th one. So they probably would get those most years, but they want the guarantee. They want the guarantee of the revenue. They look at it as our programs are the draw. Ohio State, Georgia, Texas, Michigan, Penn State, whatever. Those are the programs that are drawing the eyeballs. So, and those are the top level programs, and they should be in the playoff every year. So that is what they are really focused on. And a big part of this meeting that's going to be happening next month is getting on the same page. They might not be able to get it for next year, because next year the other conferences have a say. But 2026 and beyond, both conferences are committed to that 4 automatic berths.
Okay. I see some different commenters talking, what they'd like to see in terms of conference champs, auto bids at larges. That's awesome. Well done. Yeah, go ahead.
Can we say that college football guy, Bill?
He's in the house.
He's. I think we both consider him a friend of ours.
Absolutely.
I was watching his most recent episode. He had an accident.
That's
out
right.
on the highway.
I heard that.
So just, Bill, we're glad that you're healthy and that you're safe. I think about you. I did some traveling, and there's all kinds of truckers on the road, and every truck that went by, I thought, is that Bill out there?
I actually think that when I'm driving.
Exactly.
That could be Bill in that
Exactly.
truck.
So
out of all the million trucks in the world, that's him.
Exactly. So, Bill, we're glad you're on tonight. I love your show. I try and keep up with all of your episodes, but man, you put out a lot of good content.
Oh, yeah.
So we're happy that you're here and that you're healthy and safe.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. Good to have you on here. He's one of our mountain dwellers that is on many of our live shows and has his own channel. And so we've got a lot of good comments about the most important thing, our drinks.
The frosty beer. And Clint says he's drinking
Clint's drinking some Yingling out of a TBM glass.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So he was our first person to buy a TBM glass. So I'm glad he's drinking a frosty Yingling from our neck of the woods here in Pennsylvania.
That's the good stuff.
It's all over the place now. We got some Mad Dog 2020. We got some Diet Coke and some iced tea. So we got DDs in the house. So have at it, man. Just go for it. And Hard Rock Trivia thinks that the University of Guam might be the next member of the Pac-12.
Crystal Ball says not likely.
No, the Magic 8 Ball says try again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to be good because we got a lot of PAX peeps. Luxembourg to the pack. Okay.
Wow.
Even JEH, our good old B fan, he's in the game. You got to have fun while you're on here. All right, what do we got next? If the Scott Eckersley, I don't know, my eyesight.
Eckersley, yeah.
And it's not because I'm drinking, Joe or John. Enough of that. If the ACC dissolves or lose the Big 3 plus NC State, Cal, Stanford to return to their roots. And I brought that up at the very end of our episode. Yep. More so, not so much they return to their roots, but does the ACC potentially add Western to help them out a little bit? So let's reverse that and say, could they be Gonskis?
So I will say 99.9998 that they will not be gone. They will continue. Again, ESPN is happy with the deal. They are going to survive. I think Genetics is still on here, and he's been on that for a while. And I don't think that there's any chance, really, in the next 5 to 10 years of the ACC dissolving.
Right.
Now, it's very possible that they could lose a bunch of big programs, which will change the landscape and the outlook of the conference. And maybe at that point, Cal and Stanford reconsider, do we want to be in this conference? Are we playing with Memphis and Tulane and Southern Florida, instead of North Carolina and Florida State and, whoever. So, but I don't think there's any chance that the ACC dissolves anytime soon. They are healthy. They have a good partner. Unless something totally breaks down in the next few days, I guess we'll find out. But all signs right now is the ESPN will continue the contract with them, and they'll be around for a while.
So I'm going to talk real quick about the Pac-12.
Okay.
We're going to save Mountain West Pac-12 to the end, but CFB Plus is in the house. Appreciate you joining us. He says Canzano, and I'm not here to knock anybody. Mm-hmm. Like, this is an open forum. Anybody that wants to join our chat, as long as you're respectful, you're welcome here. We want to have an open discussion. As I said, I think Immaculate's going to try to join us. He told me he has some other things going on. He's going to try to get on. He has some questions for you, Steve.
All right, I'm ready.
So we might have an Immaculate, and we might have Immaculate on our show here in the near future. So if you guys are Immaculate fans, stay tuned on the Big Mountain. But back to CFB Plus. Canzano, I can't even say his name. John is going to give me hell. Yeah, I got to slow down.
Yeah. Slow down.
Canzano gives me pause because he was so wrong with the Pac-12 saga. And I hear that a lot. Why? Who knows? And we're going to be wrong on stuff. Yep. We are going to be wrong on stuff. Yep. I own it right now. Heck, we thought the best path forward for the Pac was for Oregon State and Washington State to join the Mountain West.
Yep.
I frankly still think that's the best case. I know why they're not, but to me, it would have made the best conference in the western half of the United States. But I'm going down the wrong
to
path.
Merge the Mountain West and Pac,
right.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to CFB Plus. He says that might be in large part, this is Canzano, to, kind of Oregon State feeding him information / false information. And I'm going to go back to what I said about sources. Your sources are giving you information that, again, is probably factual. I mean, they could be lying to you, but they're probably factual. But they're certainly painting it in a light that they're trying to portray, and we're cognizant of that. And I'm sure, Canzano's the same way. But for him, I mean, that guy especially, and I'm not going to knock people, but he's got radio shows. He's got his bald faced truth.
Yeah.
He's on with Wilner. I mean, he's creating a ton of content, and that doesn't mean he's lying, but it just means he's gonna, he's got to speculate.
When you're going on the record so many times,
you're gonna be wrong. So I'm not judging him, and I get people's kind of hesitation with that. Same reason why people can have hesitation with us. But it just kind of is what it is, and he's going to be wrong. He's been wrong. We're going to be wrong. And what Steve's telling you tonight isn't going to be 100% accurate, but we're telling you what sources have told him what is going on right now. And really, when you look back over the last 6 months, it frankly makes a ton of sense with the lawsuits, with ESPN, with all of that. So anyway, go ahead.
Well, I'll say with the PAC, if you would have polled every single AD and president in the PAC a month or two before they broke up, they would have said there's no way that's going to happen.
Yeah.
They're going to survive. Nobody knew. Nobody predicted. And the decision makers didn't think it was going to happen. It was a domino effect with Colorado leaving and the different things with their media deal negotiations or whatever that just spiraled out of control. So it that is what it is.
The boat started to sink. A few people jumped.
Yeah, and
that looked like that was sinking further. Then more jumped. That's what happened. It was a panic reaction to what was happening.
Yep.
And I'm not saying everybody's like, oh, we shouldn't have done that now. I'm assuming everybody's happy. But it was a panic reaction. And we just had an interview with UTEP AD, Jim Center. That'll drop early next week. For all of our UTEP Mountain West fans, just had a conversation with him. And looking forward to get that out. And he kind of says the same thing, like nobody saw this coming. And that's not hyperbole. That's not, nobody knew that was happening. So it's not just Canzano, it's everybody.
Right.
It was a knee-jerk, in my opinion, a knee-jerk reaction. Just Justin, TBM, the best Mountain West show.
Yeah.
I'll take that compliment. Thank you, Just Justin. Josh, Memphis, Tulane, and USF to the Big 12. Any comment?
Well, I don't have any. No one has told me anything about them, but other than apparently there is a list of schools that the ACC already has kind of pre-approved by ESPN, and my speculation, my guess is USF, Tulane, and Memphis are those three schools.
Right.
And so I think it is hundreds of times more likely that they would go to the ACC than end up in the Big 12.
So I've jumped down. I saw our producer give an eye woo, and that means David Jurgensen in the house.
Super fan.
So I'm going to get back up to where we were, but super fan, super chat, super something. David Jurgensen, $10. He's the man. He's been with us for quite a while. I see a lot of new people here too. Fuzzy Balls. That's a fantastic one.
Oh, another one.
Fuzzy Balls.
Yeah.
We got JM, Josh, Conundrum. But anyway, let's get back to Mr. Jurgensen. Because he has or did I miss one? What are you showing? Oh, I missed one. And Fuzzy Balls in the house.
Okay.
Were you showing me Fuzzy Balls? I missed Fuzzy Balls. I scrolled down too damn fast.
It's easy to get distracted with Fuzzy Balls.
Fuzzy Balls. All right. $5 Fuzzy Balls. Here we go. We're going to go to him, and then we're going to go straight to
David
DJ,
Johnson,
the $10, and then we'll get back up. So, Fuzzy Balls. SEC would take an even number of teams, 2 or 4. 3 makes no sense, and you kind of talked about that to some degree, and it's really the FSU that's kind of that we're not pivot school. Yeah. So any comments about that?
Completely agree with that. And the two that right now that my contact says those are the likely, they're on the verge, is UNC with their tag along North Carolina State. Those are the two that I think is most likely. Now, if they do that, it's possible they will also move over Clemson and Florida State.
Okay.
It solves a problem for everybody.
Yeah.
But we don't know if they would go that far. I agree, 3 doesn't make any sense. And so with Florida State, then it's up in the air. Do they get moved over, or do they just keep everything with the litigation going? And that is where there would be a path to eventually end up in the Big Ten. But if things happen right now, it would be, again, this is ESPN pushing this.
Right.
We still have all the open litigation. If this
Right.
were to happen right now, it would be either, I agree, 2 or 4 schools moving from the ACC to the SEC.
It'd be very ironic, Steve, and I didn't say this on the episode, if they were to move UNC and NC State to the SEC,
Yeah.
and keep everyone else in the ACC, which is what you're kind of. They're the most likely to move.
Yes.
Wow, talk about salt in the wound of FSU and Clemson, because they're still stuck in their minds in the ACC.
Yeah.
Because after we did that episode, I did think, like, why would, and I think some people have commented this on X, and there may be some here, why would ESPN, and you talked about this to some degree, but why would ESPN let FSU go? Why would they let them go to a competitor, Fox?
Yeah, I don't think they want to right now.
Okay, all right.
I think that's the thing, is they would rather they want to keep all the IPs that they have. They want to keep them. It's just, where do they want them? Do they want Florida State playing the schools from the ACC or the schools from the SEC? What gets them? Because it's all about money.
Yes, right.
ABC Disney is a publicly traded corporation. Their executives have a fiduciary responsibility to the stockholders to maximize revenue and profits. So really, that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. Where and how can they make the most money?
Right. All right, down to DJ. Would the CFP money change for the ACC if they lose UNC and Friends? Can ESPN do this without the other schools agreeing? That's a great question, and I'd like to hear what you have to say about that. Would this free FSU and Clemson? I actually just talked about that a little bit. I think Notre Dame pulling $20 million will stay put. So several different ones in here. But DJ, with the $10 super chat, he gets as many damn questions as he wants. Go for number one.
Yeah, David Jorgensen, longtime Mountain Dweller, longtime super fan. Pretty sure, if I remember correctly, he is a Nebraska Cornhuskers fan. So go Big Red. Here's the thing. This just happened to the Big 12. They lost their top two brands, Texas and OU, and they kept their place as a autonomous Power 4 program. So I don't expect anything to change if the ACC were to lose a couple of schools. No, I don't see the money change. Now, I'm not getting any information about college football playoff payouts and how that would change. But my expectation is that it would not change, because as far as I know, it didn't change anything for OU. Now, if we get a few years down the road, whatever, and we see changes, that could happen. But I don't see any immediate change. It's not like, okay, you lose UNC and North Carolina State, Clemson and Florida State, now you're all of a sudden a G6 program, or you're a G conference. No, I don't see it at that level. They would remain an A4, P4, however you want to call it, school, and I don't see a lot of changes. Now, he says, can ESPN do this without the other schools agreeing? Well,
yes, I want to hear what you say here.
Well, here's the thing. That's an open question. And my contact basically is saying ESPN is really pushing this. It's not the ACC or even the SEC who's really pushing for this to happen. The SEC, I think, is pretty sure they want to stand pat for now. This is really an ESPN move. They pay the bills. They control a lot of things. So we'll see how much they can flex their muscle. But one thing that my contact brought up to me is that ESPN and some of the other media partners are beginning to look at negotiating with schools directly instead of conferences, or maybe both, negotiating with school while also negotiating with the conference.
Okay.
For various different reasons, looking if that is a successful model, because again, they want to be able, they look at these as intellectual properties, and they want to be able to move them into the stage or the area that they want them to be.
Dropped here first, although it may have been someplace else, because I don't follow other people's pods. But negotiating directly with schools, I know that's been maybe speculated, but maybe closer than people think. Obviously ND's doing that because they're independent.
Right.
But even if you're a member of a conference, giving an FSU an extra something because they're FSU, and I'll pick on them. Well, not pick on them, but I'll single them out. Giving Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State an extra something than what maybe a Rutgers is getting because of X, Y, Z. Very interesting. The other thing I would just say, so we're 3 days away from this extension for the ACC.
Yes.
I'm going to be salacious.
Okay.
Could ESPN hold hostage to some degree these schools and say, unless you do this, unless we get UNC to the SEC, we're not extending your contract.
I mean,
and I don't know what the negative is to ESPN. I'm just using that as like again, holding them hostage to make them do it.
I mean, I think they could try to do that.
Yeah.
Whether it would be successful or not. And the thing is again, they're still happy with their ACC contract. The way it is right now,
that's the negotiation. You throw all kinds of shit out.
Yes, and that those things may have been happening. We're getting kind of close to the end right now.
Yes,
I don't know, and if that is a tactic that was used.
Okay,
but again, it's important to say they are happy with the properties they have. They want to keep them. And so the expectation is that they will renew that ACC deal either way.
Okay. With this free FSU and Clemson, I guess it just depends on what ESPN wants to do. We kind of mentioned that. You're like, why would, technically, I kind of asked that, why would they free anybody? They own their rights.
Right.
And that's IP that they own. The only reason I would say they would do that would be because of the potential, and you got into this, the potential of those cross-conference games, and if they're trying to be, if the SEC and Big Ten are trying to be partners, but if the Big Ten's not really involved here, and this is just ESPN putting their foot down, it probably doesn't free them very much, I wouldn't think.
Probably not. Now, the Big Ten does want to discuss and does want to continue to push this, the interconference games, the crossover games, whatever you want to call them, whether it's one game or two games. And I think both conferences are actually interested because I think all of their media partners are interested.
Okay.
Fox is interested. CBS wants in on the game. NBC wants to increase the inventory of big games. And ESPN, I mean, they're just out there trying to make more money.
Yeah.
So it would have to be a situation like that.
Okay. Fuzzy Balls with another, I don't know what those are, but a $2 super chat. Okay. And I thank our producer. He's letting me know when we have them because I'm doing a bad job. I'll just leave it at that. Yeah. But he says UNC, NC State, Clemson, and UVA. UVA coming up in my chat today that we didn't talk about them enough, especially given, well, you did talk about them. I did. And I reminded people, actually they did come up. But he's saying those four to the SEC, but you believe that UVA of all of them could be a Big Ten target, correct?
I think I listed them as one of my wild cards.
Wild cards, right.
They could go either way. The interesting thing is my contact says with UNC has to bring NC State along because the bosses, the as we've covered, the board of regents or whatever, will mandate that. But who they want to bring along is UVA.
Right, okay.
We keep seeing all these people ask about Duke, and I totally get a huge brand or whatever.
I see a lot of Duke. Well, not a lot. I've gotten some Duke people.
From what I understand, Duke is not a consideration. They can still play each other, whatever, have their basketball rivalry. The school that is tied most closely with UNC is UVA. So UVA is probably not going to get an invite to either one by itself, but if it ends up being tagged along with UNC, that could be a possibility.
Okay. Tyler Nelson, another longtime viewer here, and we've got a great. This is fantastic. Thank you guys so much. We will continue to stick with the chat here. We'll get to the super chats early. But I think Steve is right. We're an hour into this. I don't think we're stopping anytime soon. I may need to run
to the
offset for a minute or two, but I shall be back. But we're going to keep going here. JY and Steve, how does the Big Ten make CBS and NBC happy when Fox gets the best games? We did an episode on that, Tyler, where Steve really broke down week by week who was getting, and Tyler may have seen that episode. Yeah. But you're exactly right. Fox is getting the best games.
Yep.
And you have stated CBS and NBC are not as happy because Fox is getting the games. They're getting the viewers that they were promised, possibly.
Yep.
And that could be a reason why, while you have said the Big Ten is kind of okay to stand pat for the time being, we looked at who could help make CBS and NBC happy to have 2 or 3 game or 4 games deep of getting those viewers. I mean, outside of adding members, Steve, how do they do that?
So I have a simple answer,
okay,
and then a more complicated answer.
Okay.
So the simple answer is, so when you say how does the Big Ten make CBS and NBC happy when Fox gets all the best games?
Yeah.
You increase the inventory of big games.
There you go.
That's the simple answer. Now, how do they do that? right now, one of the things that the Big Ten is pushing is that crossover with the SEC. Adding 1 or 2 games with the SEC per year, that's part of their strategy. And all the media partners are very much interested in that. The other possibility is expanding and adding more teams. We covered that. Big Ten really wants to be in Florida. We talked about Miami and Florida State. Specifically, Miami has really emerged the last couple years. First with getting their AAU membership, which is a big thing. It's not an end-all be-all requirement, but it is a big thing. And then we saw Miami had some good viewership numbers this last year as they were more successful on the field. So that is the other way. But I think, again, the Big Ten is not pushing to do that immediately. They would push to do that closer to 29, 30, 31 when the new media deal kicks in. Because for right now, NBC is stuck. CBS is stuck. They're not going anywhere. It's more about adding that inventory for the next round of negotiations.
All right, Brandon asks about, this is a little bit of a different twist from what we've been talking. When could the ACC lose schools, if you're able to speculate a timeline? And then also he's interested because he wants to know about the AAC schools, which is that trickle-down effect. You got the SEC, ACC that we're talking about, but then we speculated on what that AAC could move up. Specifically, you talked about Tulane, Memphis, and USF. So, I mean, do you have any sort of timeline? I know the Belichick factor is the... Well, you answer. I'm answering the question for you. Go ahead, Steve.
So exactly what you were about to say. ESPN really, really wants UNC with Bill Belichick pushed over to the SEC. That is the catalyst driving things right now. So if they can make that happen, I think they would do it as soon as possible. Now, obviously, that's not going to happen for this coming season, 2025, but as soon as possible to me would mean 2026 at the earliest. Now, if they can't make that work with getting UNC moved over, then, again, we could be looking at that further timeline of the 29, 30, 31 time frame. But if they can make UNC happen, they want them, and they want them now. Like you mentioned earlier, there is kind of a thinking that Bill Belichick is going to be a ratings bonanza, and they want him as soon as possible. So my speculation would be the earliest possible would be 2026.
Okay. I know we have another super chat. I was just told I got a couple more here I want to hit before we go down to that. The Chad says thank you. He was the first one in, so he gets the first question answered. That's how we roll.
Yeah.
But, okay, now I'm off my thing. Where was I? Genetics says, according to Rohan, and we may have to get Doug back on.
Yeah.
We've had Doug on three different times.
Yep.
I meant to DM him today. Again, the Mountain West stuff for me is taking 99% of my time. But yes, I know Doug Rohan has put out some information today. I was not able to read it regarding the Florida State Supreme Court information with FSU saying that something could happen by the end of this year. I don't know if you have any info on
So
that.
what he's saying is it may not get...
Oh, may or may not. I'm sorry.
Not,
okay.
Yeah. So Doug put out a bunch of
yes, I didn't get to read them.
I would love to have him on again and talk about this. And basically what he said is, if the Florida Supreme Court, the Supreme Court can kind of do two things. One, they could just reject to hear it and say, no, we don't care.
Yes.
We don't need to hear it. It's already proceeding okay. We're gonna let it ride the way it is. Or if they decide to hear it, then they have to schedule oral arguments. Those oral arguments, as Doug laid out, only happen like 1 or 2 days a month.
Right.
And then there's 2 months over the summer where they don't even hear oral arguments.
Right.
So we could be to Labor Day before we were to hear, if they decide to pick up the case, we could be to Labor Day by the time we hear oral arguments, and then they often take months to come up with a decision after oral arguments.
Yes.
So that could really extend things a long time, or it may be nothing. They might just say, no, we're not hearing this case.
Last one I'm going to do, and then we'll go down to that super chat. We've got Eugene asking, what are the % chances of USF? So he must be a USF guy.
Okay.
Oh, gosh. What happened to my thing here, Steve?
You clicked, you rolled
I didn't
down.
touch
Oh,
nothing.
sorry.
No, I'm just kidding. To the Big, the ACC, the PAC, or the Big 12. If you were to take those 4 conferences and give, rank them in hierarchy, where would you put USF? Timeline kind of irrelevant. Say in the next couple years.
I would say you.
Okay. I took my phone off my internet. Sorry about that.
I just been too many people connected.
Brett, tell his daughter to quit multitasking. Tell me when we're back. Maybe
I think we're on. Yeah, we're on.
Okay. Sorry. Oh, there I am looking down at the thingy-majiggy. Yep. Okay, we're back. Sorry, peeps, and thank you. Hopefully, I get my thing. Thank you, Brett. I'm texting my daughter to tell her to stop multitasking. She actually is going to be going to bed very, very soon. Apologize, everybody. Hopefully, I'm sure we lost some peeps, but we are back. We may drop you again. We're a household.
Well, let me finish my answer.
What were we talking about?
USF.
That's right, percentages.
So,
yes.
75% chance, I think. This is just my speculation because no one has given me information on
okay.
USF. 75% chance to the ACC. Less than, we'll say 1% chance to the Big Ten, but I think it's even less than that.
Right.
20%. No, not 20.
To the Pac.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you said.
20 to the Big 12.
Oh, 20 to the Big 12.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah.
9
so
to the
70% chance to the ACC. 20% to the Big 12, and 10% or less, like 9% to the Pac.
Apologize for dropping you guys. We will come back until we sign off, and you will know when we sign off. We will come back. Just stick with us here. We apologize for that. I'm sure we lost some people for good. But we are not done. And, Steve's committed, so I'm committed.
Yeah.
David Jurgensen with another super chat up in here. I think the auto 4 college football playoff bids allows the increase to big games. I just hope with this expansion, the Big 10 gets in Florida.
So I have two things on that.
Hit it.
One, I completely agree. Well, actually, I agree with both.
Okay.
So in the first thing, and then what he's saying for people who may not understand what he's saying, is the Big Ten and SEC, they can be more willing to play each other and have these huge games if they know, like, hey, even if we go 9-3 because we lost a Big Ten game, we lost an SEC game that we're getting in, it just gives them more flexibility to, to schedule those big games. I totally agree. The other thing he mentions getting into Florida, from what I understand, my contact is telling me that is the number one priority, is to get into the state of Florida. For a long time, I thought Florida State was kind of the one and only or the most likely. But from what I understand now, both Florida State and Miami are almost co-equal targets. The Big Ten would take both or one or the other.
Okay.
But they are 100% wanting to go into the state of Florida.
Okay. So, I apologize. I am not able to scroll all the way back up, probably because I refreshed my browser. Yeah. So, we're going to keep going on here. You can probably see, if you guys scroll, you'll see where we're at. If you put in some comments, there's going to be a gap that we're missing here, so I do apologize to that. But we're going to pick back up where we are at. The Mountain Pack is such a cool name.
Yeah.
You talked about that, I think.
Yes, that was my name that I wanted. Yep.
Hard Rock loving UTEP to the Mountain West. Yep, we're excited for that. Episode to drop. Let me keep going down here. Florida is strongly opposed to Florida State.
I don't think that matters anymore, honestly.
Okay.
I don't. I think and we learned this with Texas and Texas A&M. That was a battle of wills. Texas A&M did not want Texas.
Right.
ESPN, who pays the bills, wanted Texas, so you see who wins.
Yep, there you have it. All right, Bill says, Clemson, Florida State, and Miami are pretty much a no-go for the SEC unless ESPN begs. You know, it's funny because I have seen all these rumorings now about UNC, NC State that would have to kind of tag along with them. And you mentioned this, Clemson kind of being, Bill here says the SEC maybe doesn't want him. You have never heard in your multiple conversations with your source him ever give any inclination that the Big is interested in Clemson. Yeah. So I'm maybe a little confused. If that's true and the SEC is not really interested either, I don't know what's happening there with Clemson. We know FSU, the Big is very interested and would certainly take FSU. But any thoughts about Clemson, Steve?
Well, first of all, and I understand where Bill's coming from there. But here's the thing: the SEC decision makers, I think they're happy with where they're at. Like, okay. I don't think they don't feel they need to add anybody.
Okay.
if this happens, it's not going to be because the SEC is going to be like, hey, we really want Clemson or we really want Florida State or UNC. It's going to be because ESPN says we're paying you $500 million or $1 billion a year or whatever, and we want to move these schools over here. So that's going to be the decision maker. And yeah, I'm a little worried about Clemson.
Yeah.
In that scenario, it doesn't seem like the Big Ten is interested, at least right now. And when I hear, like you said, I've never heard Clemson mentioned. I speculated on Clemson before just being a partner to go along with Florida State, but I've never heard them mentioned. And when I ask about it, when I say directly, what about Clemson? My contact's just like, nah, don't really hear anything about Clemson. You know, it's not that they're against it or whatever. Sure. It's a non-issue.
It's not really on the board. It's
right.
Again, not a negative, but it's not. They're not really on the board. It's not a target they're going after.
Exactly. So in order for them to get out and get into one of these P2, it would have to be like he says. ESPN begs. Yeah. ESPN would have to push the issue. Yeah. I think to get them over to the SEC.
So I'm going to combine a couple of JM East comments here. NC State and UNC to the SEC. That's exactly what Steve is saying. But then he says the ACC potentially becoming a group conference. I think that kind of gets back to where we believe things are kind of headed here. You're going to have a Power 2 and a group of 8. And so, yeah, I guess we would kind of agree with that. But it's more of you're going to have your big boys outside of a breakaway. They're going to kind of do this breakaway within the NCAA umbrella, and you're going to have your big 2 boys and kind of everybody else. And yeah, there's going to be your mids and your lower mids and your lows, but there's clearly going to be a top 2 and everybody else. It's kind of where we're headed.
Absolutely. It's going to top 2 and everybody else now. However, the way this House settlement is going and potentially legislation, it seems as if the courts and whoever wants to protect that status of the ACC and the Big 12 as autonomous conferences, A4. So
Good point.
That might basically carve out a middle wedge for them.
Sure.
Where you have the Power 2, you have a group, and then you have the middle 2, we could call them, which I think it seems to me ACC and the Big 12 are comfortably in that era.
So I'll ask it.
Area.
Okay, I'll answer another real quick question from JM East about Texas State to the Pac-12. When will that invite occur? I think a lot is going to happen in March. Either late March, early April, like that time frame, March-April time frame. I think we're going to get media evaluations, or media partners, I should say, not evaluations. You're going to get those agreements. You're going to hear who the additions are. You're going to hear all that. The beginning of this week, Monday and Tuesday, was meetings of the ADs. That included new member ADs. They went through some of this. Canzano talked about what they were talking about. In terms of additions, where media values are at. They are towards, I've had some people tell me they're at the early stages. They are not at the early stages. They have had many conversations with media partners. I think they've had information regarding what their values are. And I think right now, I mean, we're almost in February. February is going to be like, let's make our decision. We have all the information we need. We're going to make our decisions. And then I think you're going to hear about that information in March. All right, where are we going next?
JM East, he has a question. Yep. Florida State and Clemson to the Big Ten. I did go on record a year ago as saying I thought Florida State would be the next team, the next program, the next school to join the Big Ten, and I said Clemson may tag along with them. But what I'll say right now is if a move happens right now, it's going to be within ESPN's networks and not to the Big Ten. So if Florida State and Clemson were to go to the Big Ten, it's not going to be for a few more years till we have a resolution on the litigation and as we get closer to the Big Ten's new media deal, which will be around 2030, 2031.
How many schools in a conference, this is from Josh, a Utah State Aggie fan, how many schools in a conference is too many in this new paradigm of a super conference? Do you think is there a limit that they're willing to go to?
I have a hard time seeing either one of them go above 20.
Okay.
I think 20 is kind of a hard ceiling. If Kevin Warren was still the commissioner of the Big Ten, I think he would have been willing to go to 24. I think he would have added a whole swath, wanted to add a swath of schools down the Atlantic coast and go to 24. But with the large conferences now, and they're already seeing some issues, go above 20.
Will Compton, I know you were going to be the next question we got to before I lost some of the chat. So I'm going to do your question next here. I'm not sure if this is a repeat of what we had missed before, but I know you were going to be the next one I got to. I just say, well, David Jurgensen was kind of going down the path I was going about that whole hold hostage type of deal. So, yeah, well, again, we'll know in a couple days, I think, right? They're either going to extend or they're not. But anyway, back to Will. He says, Notre Dame to the Pac-12 in a together but separate deal. Could it work? All sports to the Pac-12. Most teams go to Notre Dame. Notre Dame gets a bye week. Pac-12 gets eyeballs.
No. Okay. I don't think so. I cannot imagine a scenario where that happens. I think the most likely scenario is Notre Dame continues to do what they've been doing, staying independent. That's what they want to do. They want to stay independent. They like their deal with the ACC, and they're committed to that financially. There is some pressure from NBC. So if they were to join a conference, I think it would be the either the Big 10 or the SEC, and more likely the Big 10. But honestly, 10 years from now, when we're doing or 9 years from now, we're doing a 10-year anniversary show for the Big Mountain, I still think we're going to be talking about Notre Dame being that elusive independent team that everyone's still trying to nail down.
All right, so Conundrum, I saw him agreeing with you earlier. He says, is private equity, and that's not something we talk about too much, private equity. We brought it up a few times, but not very often. Is private equity impacting any of these decisions?
From what I understand, private equity is not a factor whatsoever in either the Big 10 or the SEC.
Okay.
There was talk about Florida State getting some private equity, to going that route to raise funds to get out of the conference and all of that, but I haven't heard anything more from that. But as far as the Big 10 and the SEC are concerned, they have no desire to go down the private equity route. They're already rich enough. Many of them are public universities that are large flagship public universities. You have an Ohio State, you have a Michigan, a Georgia, Texas, University of Texas, the flagship university of the Texas state system. They have more money than Oprah. Okay. They're not looking for private equity right now. And I think honestly, if any large public schools were going in that direction, I think they may run into problems with the legislation in the legislatures and courts in their states. If any power conference or A4 conference were to go the private equity route, I would suspect that would most likely be the Big 12.
Okay.
But as far as the Big 10 and ESPN, there's nothing about private equity going on as far as I know.
Okay, I see a lot. I know we got some super chats. We're going to get to them next. Next things are kind of about the Mountain West. I'm seeing Tarleton. We are Tarleton drum bangers.
Yes.
I think they are an absolutely great addition to the Mountain West. I tweet about them often, might be a little strong, but I put some things out about Tarleton every so often. And, the Mountain West has passed on Texas before. And they've tried. They've reached out to Texas State. They've reached out to Sam Houston. So far, both of them have said no. I think they have got to get into the state of Texas than just UTEP.
Yep.
So I'll keep saying that until hopefully it occurs. So let's get down to, whoopsie.
Did we miss?
Here we go. Fuzzy Balls. These are new, right, Steve? Yes, these are new. Fuzzy Balls and David Jurgensen going again. So Fuzzy Balls first. Thank you very, very much, sir. Various SEC ADs have voiced strong opposition to adding FSU because of the very public lengths FSU has gone to try and break the grant of rights.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
and so
I'll just say something real quick. It's definitely when you're in a conference, you want to be a member of the conference in which you're all working together for the better good. At the same time, every university, and you've said this before, has a fiduciary responsibility to their university. And so they can be at odds sometimes, right? And I think we got to a point with FSU, well, not that I think, we got to a point with FSU where they had just had enough. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm not here to judge that. But they have had enough of what they feel was the ACC not providing them with the service that they deemed they required. But I understand that whether it's SEC, Big Ten, whoever, other ADs could view that as they're not a good partner. And we've talked about that before. They can be viewed that way. But every school has a fiduciary responsibility to their membership. The thing that I could understand is how they went about doing this in a very public, very salacious way. Absolutely, I could see people taking issue with that. I can totally understand that. And that's not JY being an FSU hater anymore. That's just, I can understand why people would think that way.
So I have a couple thoughts on
Yes.
this. First one is...
Steve.
Oh, yeah.
It's time.
What's...
I'm leaving,
Oh,
but
okay.
I shall return.
So I'll give my thoughts
You go.
when you're gone. So my first thought on this is, so we love our athletic directors. JY's gotten a bunch of Mountain West ADs on. We've interviewed. We've had some great interviews. We love them. They're great people. They're doing the hard work every day to raise money, raise funds, get things going. Get the games scheduled, get people where they need to get, schedule this and that. They are coordinating all of those things. So we love ADs. Now, that being said, ADs are not making these decisions, okay? That's just not the way it is. The people who are making the decisions are the people who are writing the big checks and the people who are getting the big checks. So we're talking the media partners, ESPN, and then the university presidents who are making the big bucks to make these decisions. So I get it. I'm sure SEC ADs, they've been vocal. They can go on Feinbaum and say whatever they want to say, but at the end of the day, the university presidents are getting paid to make these decisions, and the people who are writing the big checks, a la ABC, Disney, ESPN, are the ones who have the most influence, not necessarily the ADs. So the other thing I want to say is, so we're talking about, schools leaving and how they behaved and whatever, in current SEC schools. Well, we just saw this situation with Oklahoma and Texas leaving the Big 12, going to the SEC. Well, there's a couple things with that. First of all, OSU and Texas tried to do the same thing. They tried to break out and get out a little bit early. But at the end of the day, the calculus for them, they only had one extra year that they had to stay around. So to them, it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't worth going through the lawsuits. But if they had 10 more years hanging over their heads where they would have been stuck in the Big 12 and not able to leave and go to the SEC, which is what they wanted to do, I can assure you that Texas and Oklahoma would have been doing the same thing, would have gone the same route. And if we want to talk about like salacious and acting a fool, basically, look at the behavior of Texas A&M when Texas did get accepted to the SEC. You had legislatures, lawmakers, alumni throwing an absolute fit, trying to pass legislation to keep Texas and Oklahoma from switching conferences. Acting like total fools. They raised a big ruckus, and then all of a sudden, when the decision was made and it couldn't be changed, they took their check and cashed it and shut up. So that's what happens in these cases. We've seen the precedent for that, and I would expect the same thing to happen. If FSU and Clemson were to get added, once everybody started writing the big checks and the schools started taking those checks and cashing them and using that money, all of a sudden, all of those worries and those problems go away. It's amazing how that works.
Steve, we just had a first.
Okay. First on-air bathroom break?
Yes.
And
I can only imagine if John is still with us. Let me scroll down.
What's the old saying? Once you tap the...
Guys, this is where we go on the Big Mountain. We get, we're like old college buddies.
Yeah.
We just have a good old convo here.
Yeah.
That's what we're all about.
I'm going to have to answer questions more quickly.
I apologize. Kicking the toys, JY. Bill. Okay, let's go back to Mr. DJ with another super chat. I think DJ and David Jurgensen.
Yes.
All of a sudden, he's DJ to me. Mm-hmm. He has got to be our number one super chat contributor.
Absolutely.
100%.
Sure.
So, Rutgers and Maryland back to the ACC. Salacious.
Not going to happen.
Not going to happen, DJ. I knew what you were going to say.
I keep seeing people on... And I think he's just being a little tongue-in-cheek with
Yeah.
that because Rutgers and Maryland suck. It is what it is. But I keep seeing people on X, they talk about, the Big Ten kicking out teams. They talk about the SEC kicking out Vanderbilt.
Right.
There is nothing that any decision makers have said or done that should lead you to believe that that's actually ever going to happen.
Yeah.
Only one school has ever left the Big Ten. That was the University of Chicago.
Yeah.
Because they basically got rid of sports or downgraded their sports or whatever.
Right.
There are no teams that are getting kicked out of the Big Ten. We are stuck with Northwestern. We are stuck with Purdue. I think we have Purdue fans. We are stuck with Rutgers, and we are stuck with Maryland. It's just that's just the way it is. I don't see anything changing, and the same thing with the SEC. And the only thing that could ever change is if they do at some point just totally abandon the conference structure and go to a super league. Then it's who's going to make it in. But as long as the SEC exists, they're going to have Vanderbilt, and as long as the Big Ten exists, they're going to have Northwestern, they're going to have Purdue, they're going to have Rutgers, and they're going to have Maryland. It's just the way it is.
All right, we're getting a little behind. I don't mean to miss anybody. I see a lot of peeps still talking the Tarleton to the Mountain West. Uh-oh, I'm seeing some buffering. Hopefully that's better now, which I'm sure it is because this was a little while ago. This is back when we lost people.
Yes, yeah.
So, okay. Man, that's how far back. We're back. Yes, we are back. Yes, Jerry. By the way, grant of rights was signed by UNLV, and will it be nullified if the MOU is unable to be fulfilled? We'll get to that in a little bit, Jerry. I'm going to talk Mountain West here, along with grant of rights and all that kind of stuff when we kind of get done with this. I'm going to try to breeze through this a little quicker.
So CFB Plus,
Yep.
he says he emphatically disagrees with the Big 12 having more of a chance to land USF with the pack. You know what? I'll concede that because I don't think either one of them is
Right.
getting USF. USF is I should have made the percentages higher. 97.5%
Sure.
likely going to the ACC.
Yeah. All right, what do we got here, Steve? This Brett Taylor one. The logical solution is 8 divisions of 7 teams each play 6 division games.
So Brett Taylor's talking about, okay, throw out the money, throw out everything else, just create 8 divisions of 7 teams, whatever. Well, that goes back to, we tried to create a super league. We had Bill
Right.
on. We did a draft last year. It was a ton of fun, and maybe something like that happens in the future. But for right now, the power structure is the conferences and whoever is paying their bills.
So, college football addiction. That's a great name.
Yeah.
With the ACC ESPN agreement, do you anticipate the money changes much, or is it simply just an extension of kind of what they got?
Okay, so with the caveat that my source, I don't think he was really getting much information regarding the money.
Right.
But from what I understand, they would just simply extend the deal as is because they're very happy with the deal as is.
So, Brett, this is, again, we're a little behind comments from when we talk about them, but Brett was agreeing when he had asked the question, Brett Taylor had asked the question kind of about ESPN and Fox calling the shots, and he says, yeah, the SEC and Big Ten are going to take whoever they say. Kinda.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we're saying.
I mean, Fox wanted the LA market, and the Big Ten did what they had to do to bring in USC and UCLA.
Right.
It sounds like ESPN really wants UNC right now. And I agree. I agree with him completely. We're making the same point that the networks, the people that pay the bills, are the ones that are predominantly calling the shots. Now, if they said, hey, we want you to take some crazy school from somewhere that didn't make any sense, that would be a different thing. But the
Sure.
schools we're talking about are all fine academic institutions,
Right.
High-level athletic departments. So for the most part, I agree, though, the media partners are calling the shots. And that's been a trend that has continued, and they've gotten more and more power as they've written bigger checks.
Right. Any talk about Texas A&M to the big noise? Have you heard that at all? I mean, that's kind of out there, but
I have never heard that from my contact whatsoever. I did see that thrown out there as by some respectable outlets or
Yeah.
people before, but my contact has never once mentioned Texas A&M as a possibility. And just like Clemson, I asked, and they said, "Well, if someone's talking about it, they aren't talking to me about it."
Tyler asks if Disney may be behind this idea to move the schools between ACC and SEC since they are owners of ESPN.
Yeah.
Probably.
Well, yeah.
But I'm not. I guess I'm not sure what that question is asking.
They're all one entity.
Right.
I mean, ESPN is just a subdivision of Disney. So yes, they are all together. Disney, ESPN, ABC, it's all one thing.
So Antonio asks, he totally gets the FSU piece to the Big Ten, but he doesn't quite understand the Miami piece. Is it one or the other? Is it both could happen? Help people understand a little bit more about Miami. I mean, we've been banging the FSU for a while. You've said, and you've been told FSU, if they wanted to go to the Big Ten, done deal.
Done deal. If they can get out.
Let's talk a little bit about Miami.
Yeah, so talk about Miami. So first thing, a few years back, they did not fit the profile. We did a few episodes talking about the Big Ten's preferred profile. Right. There's a few things that they want in their preferred profile. They would like to have a large flagship public university. They would like to have an AAU member. They would like to have a large school with a large alumni base. And now the newest thing of the profile with the new commissioner is get good eyeballs on TV. So USC a few years back, they're not a public university, they're a private university. They were in a large market, they're an AAU school, all of those things. They were an easy choice. Miami is kind of a smaller version of that. The Big Ten wants to get into Florida very badly. It's a huge market. Florida State is maybe is closer to that profile, but they still don't have AAU status. They are working on it. But Miami, they have the AAU status. We broke down. They're getting the eyeballs when they were successful this season. And they're not a huge school. They have a smaller alumni base, but really they're in the state of Florida. They can draw eyeballs, and they're an AAU member. So there's not going to be any objection. So the networks want them because they're in Florida and they draw eyeballs. Right. And the presidents won't reject them because they're AAU members. The presidents can brag on, hey, we're bringing another AAU member into, and they're a fine academic institution as well.
So let's talk. We're going to stay with Antonio here. You don't think that the Big Ten won't want Bill Belichick in that conference? I'm sure Fox would take Belichick in a heartbeat, 100%. But so I'll answer sometimes.
You go for it.
You can agree or disagree.
Yep.
100% they would want them, but they're owned right now by ESPN, and ESPN ain't giving up that IP when Bill Belichick is eyeballs.
Yes.
And that's the reason, to your point, Antonio, that's why Steve is saying, and his source has been telling him, they want to move UNC to the SEC to drive eyeballs with those more, Texas games, Georgia games. Not that they won't drive eyeballs anyway, but can you imagine Bill Belichick playing SEC teams? Again, I'm not knocking the ACC, but you've got the Wake Forest, the Boston Colleges, the Virginias. I'm not knocking these schools.
Pittsburgh,
The Pittsburgh.
They're not drawing the eyeballs.
They're not Texas and Georgia and Alabama. Yes. That's the reason. Absolutely, Fox would want Bill Belichick, but ESPN ain't giving that up. They just walked into a treasure chest of money, and they want to exploit as much as they can out of that. That's what we're talking about.
And it's all about timing. The Big Ten probably, maybe would, but by the time they would be available to the Big Ten, due to the contracts and the grant rights, assuming the ACC extends, Belichick might be retired or not amongst the living anymore.
Right.
So this is a timing thing. ESPN is pushing because they control the rights right now, and it's all about timing.
Yeah, and Tumasta says they might want them, the Big Ten,
right,
but they ain't getting out. And again, Antonio, appreciate the questions. I'm not trying to knock your question, but I'll tell you what, the ESPN is super happy that UNC has Bill Belichick. And again, exploit has negative connotations, but they want to make as much money as they can off of their IP. And UNC is an ESPN IP. That's what we're kind of talking about. All right, let's keep going here, Steve. All right. That's my little song. Da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
That's my song.
All right.
You know who we're missing tonight? I don't think I've seen Steven.
Oh, no.
Steven Vitt. I haven't seen him tonight.
No, I haven't
That's
seen
okay.
He did comment on our video.
Yeah, he the man. All right. Okay, so Hard Rock, if all these schools leave the ACC, then JMU to the ACC. They were one of your wild cards. And I had some people asking, because the ACC is so North Carolina based, Mid-Atlantic based, right? Wow, if they use UNC and NC State, they better replace, well, you mentioned multiple North Carolina schools. ECU,
App State.
Appy State, and then in Virginia, you mentioned JMU.
Yeah.
So yes, the schools Steve is saying potentially could be leaving. The backfills here, potentially. Now, again, you're saying Tulane, Memphis, in terms of eyeballs, readiness, all that kind of stuff.
USF, Tulane, Memphis, top three.
USF, they're at the top. But the JMUs, the ECUs, the Appy States are where the ACC wants to be. That is their home base.
Yes.
So that's why, yes, agree. Hard Rock Trivia, Steve mentioned JMU. Talk about a freaking meteoric rise.
It would be
Holy
amazing.
crap.
Yes.
I don't know, any other comments? Maybe I took them off.
No, that's
of you.
perfect. Yep.
All right, let's keep going here, Steve-O. Oh, get off my phone. I was on my phone because I was taking myself off of my internet.
Yeah.
So I am now on the whatever the hell I'm on. I'm not on my Wi-Fi, which is why we're going to stay with you guys. All right, is a bigger brand. Wait a minute. Okay. Let's see. We got a new person commenting here.
Joaquin Fernandez.
My prediction is FSU Miami to BIG, UNC NC State Clemson Virginia to the SEC ND in all sports except football to the BIG. Scheduling agreement with the BIG. Pretty similar to what you kind of said.
All of those things very possible.
Absolutely. And not only possible, but those things make sense.
Yep.
Although that's weird because a lot of what's happening doesn't make a lot of sense. But yeah, that's a great comment, sir. All right. You can get ahead of me, Steve, if you see something you want to say. Uh-oh, I got to scroll down a little further. All right, Conundrum, remembering everybody. Hit that like button. Appreciate it, sir. More some Tarleton stuff. So Dalton, let me hit this Tarleton stuff, Steve, real quick.
Okay.
It's about budget, and apparently I've seen some Sam Houston peeps questioning the Tarleton budget, and I have put some stuff up on X about that. I am well sourced with the data that I have put up. You can believe it, you cannot believe it. They've got the money. They're able to in their athletics. I'm not sure what else you want me to say. I've done some research on that. Unfortunately, I saw their entire chart of their entire budget, but I don't know their chart of accounts. So it was done by account code, and I don't know what their accounts are. I have no reason to believe that 40 mil number that they have out here for this year, or is it next year, isn't accurate. I mean, I saw their scholarships are $4 to $5 million alone just for scholarships. So I have no reason to believe that, that 40 mil that's been put out there isn't realistic. And, I believe I've heard that there maybe are some, what do you call them? Right to know. In this state, we call them right to knows, but you submit the DAG because they're a public entity.
Yes.
The FOIA, whatever it is.
FOIA.
I'm not going that far. They got better things to do than answer a question like that for me. But I am confident that the 40 million number that I have put out is pretty damn accurate. That's all I'm going to say about
And
that.
all the public schools, they report to the NCAA their budgets and all that kind of stuff. It's just that it's usually a couple of years behind.
Yes.
So
right, and that's part of the issue. Like
Yeah.
what 2025 and 2026 is
Right.
isn't what 2022 was,
Right.
and they are investing more. So it is increasing year over year. So when people look at 2021 and they're like, it's at 25 million or 30 million, where are you getting that? That's 3 years ago. Like, I have to take it for what I'm getting. And again, I'm very confident in the sources that are giving me that information. Wash my hands? Maybe. Okay, let's keep going here. I'm not touching Steve, so he don't care. I'm getting a lot more Mountain West. I think maybe it's time to... Oh, we just jumped way down, Steve. What happened? What did I do?
not sure.
Let me go back up. Where were we? Oh, Immaculate's in the house. He is here.
Yeah, are we still in the
let's see.
presentation or the Q&A? We're in the Q&A.
We're in the Q&A. It's right before we get, hey, made it wonderful, awesome. I blame Steve that we're still doing this. An hour, what the hell are we in? An hour and 45 minutes into this, our
Yes.
producer's ready to fall asleep,
Yes.
Steve.
Oh, well.
Blame Steve, producer.
Well, let's get to the questions a little quicker there.
You talk too damn much. It's not my problem. No, I'm just kidding. I love you, Steve. Let's go down here. Okay, let me just go real quick, buddy.
See your eyes.
Oh, we got double fries in the house too.
Double fries, no slaw.
TJ Pittenger in the house. We had him on before. See, I got to get down. I'm sorry, guys. At this point, we're dropping down closer to where peeps are at.
We need to get TJ and Doug on together. Talk Florida State.
We were
again.
talking Doug a little bit earlier here, TJ, and yeah. So we're going down to where people are at. If we miss some of you guys, blame JY for his bathroom break. And I think we're getting close. I want to check Immaculate because I know he asked me about a few questions that he wanted to ask you. Not to knock anyone else. Everybody's questions are important, but I did get a little heads up that he wanted to ask a few.
You had a few of his posts. I think you might have scrolled by.
Did I go past him already? He was just saying, look, excellent. Thank you. Oh, here we go. My bad. He's flattered about something. Oh, he's on the presentation. Okay, here we go. What do we got?
So what's he say about USC?
USC is like a hybrid. They have 45,000 students, which is more like a public set. I think he's talking about maybe somebody else's.
He was talking about how I talked about USC not fitting the profile, but they fit the profile in a lot of different ways. And like Immaculate said, they're almost like a public school. They're so large. So that was a no-brainer. And I think Miami is not quite at that level, but I think they're moving in that direction.
So I did pass over some things, guys. We're trying to get a little more up to date. Steve, is your and you can no comment if you want, but is your contact an AD, large donor, media person? That you can see everything here, just to get a sense of kind of what we're talking about. I don't know what you can and can't say.
Yeah.
As you guys know, like Steel Austin, I totally appreciate your question. Because it is like people are like, what's your source? And I get it. People want to know, are we bullshitting? Are we talking about a donor? Are we talking about? I get that, but it's also it can be difficult at times. So go ahead, Steve.
Yeah. So what I'll say there is the person is works within a Big Ten athletic department, works closely with the athletic director, and I'll say I first got to know them during my regular job as we moved through the COVID world.
Yes.
And I had to do some coordinating in that area. And so we built a relationship of trust at that point due to working through some major logistics with COVID, the university, and some other things I just won't get into. So someone within an athletic department that works closely with the AD.
Okay. And he says, not asking for a name, just sense of credibility. Mm-hmm. Totally get that. But it kind of is what it is.
Yeah.
Like we'll tell you what we can and at the same time have to be a little vague about it. Really good question here. I saw this come up several times. A school that wasn't mentioned yesterday.
Okay.
UConn. Any comments on UConn?
I've never had UConn mentioned to me as a possibility for either Big Ten or and I just don't know regarding the ACC.
Right. So, and I think a lot of it was about, like, again, it was kind of that trickle down.
Yeah.
Steve started with the SEC, Big Ten, and people moving up from the ACC,
Right.
and that's the wheelhouse that we were really talking about. As we trickle down that, maybe a little less interested because your source is with the Big Ten.
Right.
Like, they don't care as much about what happens with the ACC or the backfill of the ACC, or certainly the AAC schools. And that was the question I saw a lot about when you were kind of speculating on schools. Why wasn't UConn brought up as an ACC? So that was what I saw a lot of.
Yeah, I'll say I just don't have any information
Yeah.
on UConn. But if you were asking for my opinion or me to speculate, the thing that drives all of this, especially for the Big Ten and the SEC, is football, football, football. It's a little bit different when we're looking at the Mountain West and some other conferences, and UConn's football program has just been so kind of pathetic and pitiful. I mean, their basketball program has been amazing, and like
Right.
total polar opposites.
Yes.
So it's not a name that I don't have any information to speak on when it comes to UConn.
Yes. All right. So here we go. Immaculate. To Steve.
Okay.
Is FSU favored by Penn State in particular? Lots of history there. So that's a great question,
So what I'll say is my contacts at Penn State for a long time, they have favored FSU, yes, but they also favored UNC.
Okay.
And UNC, it looks like that's just not going to be a possibility to the Big Ten. So I think for Penn State, they would love to have some of the historic East Coast powers in the conference, but I don't know if that's going to end up making too much of a difference. But yeah, so I'll tell you, if the decision makers at Penn State could pick teams that they would want to bring into the conference, I think Florida State, I think Miami, UNC, and maybe UVA.
Okay.
I'm not sure on UVA.
Okay. DJ saying love him some devil fries. Hopefully TJ's still in the house. Okay, Will, back up to Will. Could ESPN move UNC NC State, pay a loaner type fee, like say some sort of a payment arrangement, to the AAC schools?
Well, I think there's a lot of possibilities there. I'm not privy to exactly how payments and things would work, other than what I've been told is that ESPN has a desire to be able to move schools around within leagues that they have contracts with. They want more of a decision in that process, and that's what they're pushing for right now. And they've given the green light to the ACC on certain schools. It's not given names, but to me that means that they're perfectly fine with some of those AAC schools moving. They just want a say in it, basically.
I'm going to jump down to Oscar real quick. Heard that the Pac had pulled out at the last minute. He's talking UConn. The Pac and they had pulled out the last minute. Yes, I believe I talked about that on X, that, there was that speculation when the Beavers head basketball coach kind of dropped this bombshell at the end of one of his interviews with Canzano about shaking the entire world or something like that. I have been told from a very, very good source that school that he was referring to was UConn. I think it was something like 24 hours from whatever. I have been told that was UConn to the Pac. Immaculate appreciate speaking on the source. Didn't have to. Much respect. As for UConn, okay. Oh, these things are starting to scroll too much on me, Steve.
So Immaculate's got one there where he says also for both.
Go
of
for
you.
it. Go.
So Immaculate says, how about we swap out App State or JMU with Rice, for whom the ACC picks back up? Gets them 2 Texas programs and an in-state rivalry to build. So I don't have a lot of thoughts on Rice in general or the Texas schools as far as the ACC is concerned. What I will say regarding App State, which is a public school in North Carolina,
yes,
I think ECU may be as well. But one thing I understand is and we covered this when we talked a lot about the North Carolina Board of Regents. They want to protect those North Carolina schools. They want to keep the ACC North Carolina based. So I think App State and ECU will have priority in going to the ACC if they do need to backfill, because it basically kind of keeps all the parties happy.
Yeah.
I don't have any thoughts on Rice.
Rice comes up a lot, Immaculate. I've seen Rice come up when we're talking PAC. I have commenters and repliers on X that brings up Rice. I think that's fans bringing them up. Again, not a knock on Immaculate, but I have not had any sources talk Rice at all. And I haven't asked about them, but they also haven't been brought up. And I think they're a great institution, private institution in Texas.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing they're probably staying in the AAC for a while.
Yeah.
That's just my guess.
Genetics, he says about UConn, there could be more talks about the Big East and the ACC doing things together for basketball. He says a couple Hall of Fame coaches are pushing that. I would say that makes a lot of sense. The Big East, UConn is the power in the Big East, the basketball power. And Big East makes a lot of, they have a good business model going where they make a lot of money from basketball. So they're like the one conference that basically survives, getting all their bills paid by basketball. I could definitely see them pairing up with another school. Could be the ACC, especially if the ACC loses some of their basketball powers. Now, again, look at the media partners. Who did the Big East just sign a big contract with?
I have no idea.
Fox.
Okay.
So Fox,
I don't follow the Big East.
Yeah, so Fox
I'm a West guy.
Fox is paying them a lot of money, and the Big Ten games are on Fox. So I could see some kind of partnership in the future. If that were to happen soon, it may be more of a Big East with Big Ten. I don't know. That's just rampant speculation. But again, I just have heard absolutely nothing about UConn whatsoever.
Okay. So at this point, we're about down. You can keep going on questions for Steve. I'm going to transition to the Mountain West.
Okay.
We are 2 hours in. Our producer is getting ready to shut us down.
Yeah, he's
Look
gonna
at
cut
him.
us off.
He's like, enough already. I don't want to listen to you no more. West, baby, Oscar. That's what I'm talking about. We're going out west. Holy smokes. What is that all about? And just as a reminder, I talked early on about sources versus reporters versus speculation. What Steve is telling you from a source, and source is, my sources are similar. They're coming from people in decision-making environments, whether they are the decision maker or very close to the decision maker. That's what we mean by sources, okay? It's not different in terms of, or it's not a source meaning another reporter or another YouTuber or anything like that. That is not a source for us. We will tell you when we are, kind of talking about other reporters. We'll give them the credit that they're due because it's their reporting. Look at this. West, baby, Mountain West, Navarra's statement. Everybody wants to talk about the Mountain West. Let's do it. So the statement comes out today, Steve, and
Yes.
you said you didn't get to read it.
Nope.
And I'm not going to read it verbatim. I think our producer has it to put it up. He's been waiting for us to get to the next damn topic.
Yeah.
So he has something to do.
Right.
So we finally give him something to do. The Mountain West statement here. Navarra's comes out today. Dare I say 2 days after our UNLV drop.
Right.
Not that we have anything to do with this, but, whatever.
If she says there's a lot of speculation.
There's a lot of speculation
media
out there.
outlets,
Yes, there's a lot of speculation out there. But she pops up the Mountain West pops up a statement from Navarez, and I have an opinion on this, Steve, and I need to hear your opinion.
Okay.
Because the Mountain West people say, awesome statement, leadership, and I said this on X. This is showing leadership, showing where things are at, and of course I get PAC people saying, "Wow, this is very reminiscent of about 18 months ago, or whatever the hell it's been, 24 months, what came out from the PAC about the sky's not falling, everything's okay, everybody calmed down when Colorado had left, and everybody knows what happened after that." So a lot of PAC people, and rightfully so, I'm not knocking their comments to me. I get what they went through. Oregon State and Washington State fans, I totally understand what you went through when that all blew up. So I'm not I'm not dismissing that, and I haven't dismissed it on X because I get it. But what I will say is there's specific details in this statement from Navarez, and it's not just a everything's okay, people, nothing to see here. She is providing facts, dates, specifics to things. And so, to me, this is much more of a stronger statement from the Mountain West, Gloria Navarez, than what you had seen 18 months ago from the PAC. Now, that doesn't mean the PAC people aren't correct and that, this is done out of desperation. But I want to get into some things. The first thing I want to say here, Steve, and it's something that I have been asking about and trying to get clarity on for a while, and that is the grant of rights. And I said on our episode that dropped on Monday regarding UNLV, I had not received any confirmation that the grant of rights was signed and completed. She says in this that it is signed and completed. And yes, to me, that is a big deal. The MOU was done as this is what we're going to promise you. We're going to get to a grant of rights. We're going to get to a long form agreement. And I will also say I was told yesterday that this grant of rights was completed. So I didn't get that out on X. I told people yesterday I was being, I just said, hey, there's a lot going on right now. I had gotten this information, and sure enough, less than 24 hours later, they produced this document saying, yeah, we've got grant of rights. What does that mean and what doesn't that mean? What it means is they've gone a step further than the MOU in that they have a grant of rights from the 7 members. And she was clear on this, that they received it from the 7 members. So they're including Hawaii in this, who's now a full member, but at the time, when they did the MOU, they were not. Including Hawaii in this. That would mean UNLV has signed the grant of rights. We all know that the grant of rights can be litigated. It's not an end-all, be-all. That is not what that means. But it's absolutely another step in the process of solidifying the Mountain West membership. So that was the biggest takeaway for me, was when I saw that she's talking about a grant of rights has been approved by and signed by the 7 members. To me, that's huge. That's a real data point. That is not what the PAC said. Everything's going to be okay. No, she's telling us this is, I don't want to say finalized. This has been signed, okay? The other thing that she talks about, she goes on to talk about the media rights agreement. Obviously, anybody that's following this knows they're in that process. She says what she can say. She can't say a whole lot about that. But she really talks about the commitment of these members to the Mountain West. So as you know, Steve, I moved UNLV from an unlikely to a possible on Monday. And I have people come ask me immediately, JY, are you moving them back to unlikely? My answer to that is not yet. I'm going to leave them as possible. And here's why. Because nothing is ever off the table. While I appreciate that we know they've signed a grant of rights, I am also very confident in the sources that I have telling me there's ongoing discussions with the PAC. Now, could that be because UNLV is doing everything they can from a fiduciary responsibility to make sure they're making the right decision? Absolutely. That, as people say, the easiest answer is usually the right answer. Well, that's the easiest answer, right? They're doing their fiduciary responsibility. And at the same time, what has changed between now and when UNLV originally agreed to the MOU? Nothing has changed. Nothing. Unless the PAC is feeding them information that they know to be factual, which very well could be in terms of media value. And that's why I was very focused on media value on Monday's episode, because that could potentially be the item that changes. I don't think the delta between media values is enough based on the guaranteed money that they're going to be getting, the exit fee costs, and the exit fees to leave the conference if they get a P4 invite. Again, everything I said on Monday, I don't think it's enough for them to necessarily leave the Mountain West, but it could happen. I'm not taking it off the table. So I'm leaving it as probable. Is it less probable than it was on Monday when we dropped that episode? Yeah, based on this statement, it's less probable. But I don't think it's unlikely. It's still probable. And I was thinking about this, Steve. In terms of unlikely to me is like a 10% or less chance. People ask you about percentages. When you hear JY say unlikely, I'm talking 10% or less. Probable is a pretty large range. I'm talking 80 to 20% or 80 to 10% is probable, right? It's pretty broad. When you hear Texas State in negotiations, I got them at 90%. I think they're very likely to be a member of the pack. But my probable range is pretty damn broad, and I'm not going to slice it into chunks. It is what it is.
Right.
So, Steve, I know you didn't get to read the press release that they put out. I kind of gave you the overview of it. What are your thoughts?
So first of all, I think both of us have been very clear that we have been impressed with Gloria Nevarez's leadership of the Mountain West through this entire process. I think she's made the best of a difficult situation, tried to navigate it. Once the Pac-12 exploded, that created instability in the West, and she had to navigate that.
Yeah.
And I think she's done the best that she could. And this statement, I get it why she's doing a statement, especially putting out that information about the grant of rights.
Yeah.
Because it lends some stability to the situation, at least the public conversation about this. But for me, there's that old saying about actions speak louder than words.
Right.
So what are the actions that have happened so far? Mountain West and Gloria in the Mountain West, they've gone and they've added the pieces that they need to add. Getting NIU, I think, was huge.
Yes.
In solidifying this, they were able to make concessions, or however you want to, financial commitments to UNLV, Air Force, to keep them in the fold, at least for now.
Yeah.
Adding, UTEP, bringing in, was it Grand Canyon?
Yes.
And UC Davis for basketball, making Hawaii a permanent member. All of those things, those were actions that those speak so much louder.
Right.
Because those are things that have added stability to the conference, added viability or survivability, whatever you want to call it, and getting them to the point. Now, the next action is going to be closing a deal with a media partner or multiple media partners. So that, to me, is going to be so much bigger than what a statement can do. So I think she's done everything that she can. I think the statement, it's good, it's positive, but it's nothing compared to the actions that she's already taken to ensure the survivability, the viability of the conference. And the next big thing is the media deals. UNLV, they didn't, when they decided to stay in the Mountain West, they didn't say, we don't have any interest in going to the PAC. They said, the Mountain West is the best financial deal for us. So if something were to go forward, if the PAC, brings in Texas State, like you said,
right,
and they get a media deal, and there's more of a difference between the two media deals, between the Pac-10 and the PAC and the Mountain West than you're anticipating, and you look at 4 or 5 years of that builds and builds and builds, then maybe you have a situation where UNLV moves. But for now, she's done everything she can to keep them in the fold.
Right.
Made them a good deal. Apparently, they've now signed the grant of rights, which is, it's good. I mean, how much does a grant of rights mean anymore? Who knows?
Yeah, right.
Ask Florida State and the Supreme Court of State of Florida.
Right.
But she's done everything that she can, and that's what she's going to have to continue to do. And I think that she's doing that.
Yeah.
She's doing. I don't see any other thing that she could have done to keep this conference together and to improve them than she's already done.
I agree.
And so this statement is it's just another part of that. I think a smaller part. I do, you're the Mountain West guy, you're the West Coast guy, but I kind of see the interactions on Twitter.
Yeah.
I don't fully understand. There's always got to be this pissing contest between PAC schools, Mountain West schools, comparing, my statement to your statement,
right,
my team to your teams. They're on different courses now. They've
right,
taken different paths. They're looking for different things. And yes, there is maybe 1 or 2 schools, whether it's UNLV in Nevada or UNLV in some other school, that may end up going from one to the other. But for the most part, they're looking at different schools. They're on different paths.
They are.
They're doing their own thing, and I don't understand what the continued obsession is. And again, it's emotional, but it's not helpful. The continued obsession of the fan bases to point fingers at each other, compare to each other, have these pissing contests. Because if you just look at what the Mountain West is doing, they were dealt a certain hand of cards, and they can't change that.
Right.
But if you look what they've done everything that they can
Yeah.
to remain viable and to remain a good conference that can go and get a media deal. In the Pac, they're doing their thing to be what they want to be. They have different goals. So that's just kind of my thoughts overall. Yep. And again, you coined the phrase before, "In Gloria we trust."
Yes.
I give her at least an A minus, and maybe up to an A plus.
Right.
She might be able to move up to. I like where it's headed. I love that NIU edition.
I agree.
I would still like to see them add Tarleton State, but I trust her judgment. We don't know what all those factors are. But I think things are moving well for the Mountain West. But the next thing is going to be that media. That's the next deliverable.
Yes.
That media contract. Let's see what they can go ahead and get.
Yeah, and at this point, I think all eyes are on the Pac. They're not on the Mountain West. The Mountain West has done what they're going to do. They've added schools. They're I hate to say it this way, they're a conference.
Right.
The Pac is still waiting to add that 8th member to make them an official conference,
Right.
and they're going to do it. There's no doubt in my mind they're not. That's not going to happen. But to your point of they're headed into. Their focus is on two different things.
Yes.
Their targets are two different types of schools. That's 100% accurate.
Right.
And actually, it benefits both entities that they're not
generally fighting over.
Absolutely.
A lot of things,
So, Mario says Gloria Nevarez must listen to the Big Mountain. That would be very flattering if that was the case. Not so sure it is.
We've been trying to have. So if she is listening, please come on our show. We'd love to have you on. We'd love to do an interview. We've done a lot of great interviews.
You're begging.
Yeah.
Okay. So Kevin says it was executed, not signed. Executed is signed. And I deal with this a lot. Executing a contract is signing. That is when a contract is executed when it's signed. So it's the same. It's the same thing. Executed means it was signed. So just I don't think that's an issue whatsoever. So did she mean it was signed or that the grant of rights was just put together? No, executed means it's been a signed document. That's what executed means. I don't think that's an issue. We've got Day of One Rob up in here. I think he's a San Diego State guy. He usually does the SDSU,
Oh yeah.
Muscle Man. Okay, this thing keeps jumping around on me, Steve. Let me go back up. Where the hell are we? Are we up this high? No. I'm down here. Who are we talking about? Here we are. Here we go. Tyler, we need to ask that college football guy what his thoughts are on UNLV and the Pac. Well, Bill, chime in, brother. They want to hear from you.
Bill has good insight on UNLV.
He lived in UNLV UNLV. He lived in Vegas for a while.
Yeah.
Okay, John is out. He doesn't have to give me no more grief about slurring my S's. All right, what's my immaculate say here? Gloria Nevarez is like a pro hold'em poker player sitting at a table of amateurs, and they have big stacks of chips, and they have the cards over her, yet she still finds a way to get the dubs. So far, I agree with you, but the game ain't over yet. That's what I'll say to that. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but I agree with that for where we sit today.
And here's the thing is, people have to have a realistic expectation of what are wins. It's not about, in my opinion, now there's one, we have to sort out the UNLV situation.
Yeah.
But people need to stop looking at it as a Pac versus Mountain West and look at her decisions and what she's doing in the context of how are they solidifying her conference and moving her conference forward.
Yeah.
Everything that she's done has been towards that and has been great.
Is TNT in the running for media partner for the Pac? Yes, I believe they are. As a Mountain West fan, I would like to see that continue with the Mountain West. However, I do believe that TNT Sports is in the running for both the Pac and the Mountain West. We talked about that a little bit in a previous episode. I think they're going to be with one of them. I 100% think that they will be with one of them. I don't know which one, but it's going to be the Pac or the Mountain West. As the time goes on, I really have a funny feeling Fox is going to stick with the Mountain West. I'm not as sure about CBS, but I really think Fox is going to stick with the Mountain West, which would make me happy as a Mountain West guy.
I think a continued package, if I could throw this out there, kind of where they're at, a Fox, CBS Sports,
Yes.
and maybe have like a game of the week on Turner, TNT networks.
Right.
I think would be fantastic and is very possible.
And Immaculate's exactly right. NIU is the Chicago TV market as far as networks are concerned. That's why she grabbed them. 100%. Again, I'm happy to have the Huskies. I think they have a good football program. They've been, over the course of the decade or two, the best football program in the MAC. And people go, oh, they don't have a portion of the Chicago TV market. It's not always about today. It's about growth. It's about potential. And yes, I think I love the NIU ad for the Mountain West. Central time zone. Yeah. There's just so much to love about that. Well, and I'm not being a Mountain West homer. I'm being serious.
So EAH chimes in. He says, oh, no one's in Chicago is watching NIU. Come on, man, whatever. Listen, the thing, that's not how it works.
Right.
How many people in New York City do you think are watching Rutgers football?
Right.
Not too many, but it's in that, the way the networks work, it's in that market. So there is value to it. And there's a lot of people in the Chicago market that are watching all kinds of stuff. They're watching Pac, they're watching SEC, they're watching Big 10, they're watching all kinds of stuff. But either way, it's there's value to getting into that market.
I will make the most important comment unsaid in the chat so far. I appreciate you, Justin. Go Pokes. Now, you don't have to be kidding. It needed to be said. I agree. That's not kidding. That's straight up seriousness. Thank you, Justin, for the super chat. Number 5 up in the house. And Steve, we're over 2 hours. I think we're going to let me give this a really quick. If there's one thing we need to talk about.
If there's any questions I missed, I'll go in the comments. Okay. I'll read them and I'll answer the questions.
Hard Rocking Trivia Show says, holy moly, we're still going. All right, let's keep going here. We got to hit the big one, Steve. I'm going to the bottom. Get them in now or forever hold your peace.
So Will Compton mentions Bama's in BFE. I think in 2025 location doesn't matter as much as star power. Both matter. Location and markets matter, but star power and branding matter. SEC has gone the route of they want those big Southern brands, even if they're in BFE, whereas the Big 10 went the route of they want those markets. They want the LA market. They want the New York City market, whatever. And both have used that. There have been successful strategies for both.
Rumbling says he feels like Gloria gets way too much credit and no blame for the deterioration of the Pac Mountain West relationship. We'll never know the truth. She works for the members. I get that side of it, but you're never going to know if that's true.
I don't get that side of it because how do you blame a segment of schools wanted to leave and go to the Pac? The Pac did not want all of the Mountain West schools. Yeah. Like those things were out of her control and out of her power, and there's nothing that she could have done. In my opinion, that's differently. I don't see that at all because it's not just like they didn't like each other, like they had a disagreement. Those schools that left, the San Diego State have been trying to leave forever. Boise, they wanted to go and do what they thought was an upgrade. She wasn't going to change their mind. It wasn't like they didn't like her. They wanted to do that. And the Pac decision makers, Washington State and Oregon State, they looked at it as some of the Mountain West programs were beneath them and didn't want to play. It's, again, not because of a personality conflict between Gloria and them. It's just that's how they saw things as far as marketing, money, value, all of those things. And there's nothing that she could have done that changed that. She tried to protect. She foresaw that danger.
Yes. Well, and she has said that.
Yes.
We knew immediately. When the Pac broke up, this was a risk.
Yes.
She has said that multiple times.
Yeah, so she tried to protect them with that agreement when they did the scheduling agreement. And it just didn't. I mean, it worked to some point where they're supposed to get a bunch of money, but there's only so much you can do to protect. And since then, that's water over the dam or water under the bridge. Those things happen. They're going to happen. And what she has done since then, she's taken the best path to again ensure, because there was a possibility that the Mountain West could just dissolve at that point.
Yeah.
They had so much of a
people were saying that. I was adamant. They are not going to dissolve.
Right.
The Mountain West will continue. I told everybody
Yeah.
that. But there was a lot of smoke that they're going to just dissolve. It wasn't going to happen.
And she took the steps. It could have happened, but she took the steps to keep the conference together by, again, solidifying Hawaii, bringing them in, bringing in some basketball powers there, bringing in UTEP, bringing in NIU. I think the addition of NIU is massive, and I don't think she gets enough credit for that.
I agree. And Two Masters right. NIU ratings were, and I hear this all the time from NIU fans. If anybody's going to know this, it's the Husky fans.
Yeah.
They will know. NIU ratings were destroyed by playing midweek Maction games. Yeah. I love Maction games.
Yes.
You love Maction games. Where am I watching a Maction game? On my freaking butt in my sofa on TV.
Yeah.
I'm not in DeKalb on a Wednesday night watching a match, and nobody else is either.
Right.
100% Tumasta, and the Husky fans completely agree with you. All right, couple more questions, and then we are Dunskies. Test subject. Going back to you, Steve.
Okay.
If ESPN lets these teams out of the ACC, they're done. The rest can leave. Why would any of them sign a new contract if they don't have to? ESPN can just renew with loss addition of teams. So the question is like, if this happens, the ACC's gone skis. And you said no.
Totally disagree. The only teams that in the ACC who are not happy with their current deal are the teams that are trying to leave or threatening to leave. For the other teams, it's still a good deal.
Yeah.
ESPN still thinks it's a good deal.
Yeah.
They can work around if they do an extension, they can do addendums with these teams leaving. As long as the money is right, and every indication is the ESPN still wants to pay the money, as they're not going to just walk away from a paycheck from the most stable and powerful sports media enterprise. So I don't see a scenario where the ACC gets blown up at all. They may lose some schools. They've already got some schools identified. ESPN wants to keep them. They need that inventory. So I just don't see it. For 2 years, everyone's been predicting that the ACC was going to be dead. Well, again, just like Mountain West has done, ACC made the moves that they needed to make to ensure survivability. I think they're locked in, and I think they're set at least through the end of this decade, maybe a couple more decades of survival and existence.
Last one, Steve.
Okay, last one.
EH has been with us from the beginning.
All right.
And he has been chatting about North Dakota State since the very beginning. And we said to EH, we're going to get back to North Dakota State. This is the last thing we're going to talk about, Steve.
Okay.
Do you have any comments? And then I'll finish it out.
Okay.
Do you have any comments about North Dakota State to, let's just say the FBS, whether it's the Mountain West or anybody?
Yeah.
Are they ready to go?
So I think I'll concentrate on the Mountain West portion of that. That it would be really fun.
Yes,
it would make for a ton of fun TV. I would love to watch it, and they may go through and run through the Mountain West on the field.
They'd be pretty damn good
because they're a good football team.
Absolutely.
They're a good football program. But to me, there is nothing to indicate that they are fully ready. The decision makers are fully ready and prepared to do exactly what it takes to move up to the FBS. And I just don't know if there's enough value with them due to where they are in their population and all that stuff. If there's enough value to add them to any FBS conference, I'm just not sure on that. So I don't see it happening, but it would be fun to watch. If it happens, you and I, we'll be watching those games. We'll be texting each other. Wow, did you see that? It'll be fun. I just don't know if it actually makes sense. And I just don't know if the North Dakota State people are actually want that or committed to that.
So I have different thoughts on NDSU, and I'm not going to belabor the point. I think it does matter the product you're putting on the field. Mm-hmm. A good product drives viewership. We're very focused. Everybody's very focused. We just talked about NIU being in Chicagoland and what that means. But the product matters as well. And I think the product that NDSU brings, and I'm going to talk football only. I don't want to get into like the full membership and all that. We're a football pod. That's what we're focused on. But I think the product elevates the Mountain West with a Bison invite.
Sure.
That it just elevates the entire conference. Almost anybody that follows college football understands who North Dakota State is. They have won how many? Is it 11 now? FCS championships. I mean, just year after year, they're one of the top schools. The problem is, does a media partner care? I care as a football fan. I care as a Mountain West fan. I care as all of that. But if the media partner is not willing to pay anything for that, unfortunately, the Mountain West or to your point, any FBS conference is probably just going to continue to overlook them. I like to think, and in our last Mountain West episode, I said, in my opinion, the next two targets for the Mountain West are Tarleton State and North Dakota State. I'm fairly confident Tarleton wants a full membership. I do not think Tarleton's going to join football only. I don't think that's in the cards. I think if they got a full membership with Conference USA, that's where they would head. They want a full membership for their entire university.
Yeah.
So if the Mountain West's not willing to do that, they're going to go to the Conference USA. North Dakota State, I would hope to make it a win-win. They'd be willing to do football only because I think that is a win-win. I actually think that's probably the only way they get into the Mountain West is as a football only. I don't see them getting in as a full member. Regardless of if they want it and they draw a hard line, if they draw a hard line, the Mountain West ain't going to do it.
Right.
I'm sorry, they're just not. But the football fan in me and the product on the field fan in me believes that North Dakota State's football team, if the university wants it, is worthy of being in the Mountain West. And that's not a knock on North Dakota State. I think they'd come in and be potentially championship contenders year one, for crying out loud. That's why, to me, I think that product is so important. So, yeah, I don't have much more than that. I just wanted to give EH his due because he has been just going at it in the chat.
I honestly think that you and I agree, basically. Yeah. We think it would improve the football. But we also, I think, both have questions. Does North Dakota State really want to do that? Like,
I still question that.
Yeah,
I still question that. And, I have been pumping to that point real quick. They have not opted in.
Right.
And I think on the surface level, that's a negative. I understand. And we talked with AD center for UTEP about what that means. The scholarship thing is a real issue. The risk and the uncertainty of what the hell, how the house settlement's going to actually be is a real issue.
So many unknowns.
And those were the two reasons they gave. They are legit reasons. But unfortunately, on the surface, it looks, I'll be honest, it looks like a negative. It doesn't look like you're ready to be an FBS program.
I think, to me, it looks like that they are watching their options, and they are committed to doing what's best for their university.
Yeah.
Not and not necessarily just putting all their eggs in the FBS basket.
Yeah.
Because they're doing great if things continue the way they are, they're already doing great. Like, they are at the top level of their division level, if they stay opted out, they have more control over their scholarships and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I think you and I are pretty much in agreement in them. The thing that's the big unknown that neither one of us knows, and we can kind of guess or speculate, is what the media partners think of them and if they would add value. And we just don't know. There's no way for us to know that.
Right.
Which is, it just is what it is.
Yeah, we have absolutely no idea on that. And that's, at this point, that's what's going to tip the scale.
Right.
The media partner's going to make it or break it.
Because the value is, like you said, they have football entertainment value, but then the drawback is where they're at, the population center, the market. And people are talking about the population coming back there.
Right.
That's going to be a generational process.
Yeah, that's
like
long-term.
You're not, just because they bring back 20,000 oil workers, over the next year, that doesn't change the markets so much there, at least not right now. So
we got Joseph in again. He's a good follower. I know he follows this really well. So good to have you on too. Glad we got to some NDSU, man. We covered the Gambit.
Yeah.
Holy crap. I got to give a quick shout out to our producer. We're keeping him here for forever. He sits behind the screen. He gets no love, and I'm going to give him love. Mwah! We love our producer.
PWB Productions in the house.
Productions. Everybody that stuck around. I think we got close to 200 tonight. Fantastic. We're still over 100. We thank you guys so much for coming on tonight. We made it happen. Steve promised it.
Yep.
We made it happen. We got through all the questions. As I said, I know we still have Immaculate in the chat. We may have him on next week if we can get our schedules to work out. Would love to have him come on a phone call and have some conversation with him as well. Thank you guys so much for coming on, talking with us. We will stay on all things Mountain West, Big 10, Pac-12, and of course, realignment. With that, hey, make sure you give this sucker a like. Pam, 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 pam. Subscribe if you love our content. We'll see you all next time on the Big Mountain.